over there though.
Perfect.
No, I just didn't want.
So much.
It should be
I'll leave
interesting.
Liam's over here. I'll go back. Yeah. I'll take it. You'll help me, right? She will. You'll help me. Just so you know. I'll discuss my-
Good evening. This is the June 28th meeting of the Scarborough Planning Board. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, I guess he's-
Thank you. Doreen, are you able now to do the roll call? Thank you.
Rachel Hendrickson,
Here.
Richard Dupere,
Here.
Rick King,
Here.
Roger Beely,
Here.
Jennifer Ladd, Russell Scudder,
here,
Thank you. In the absence of Jennifer Ladd, Russell Scudder will be a voting member. Ms. Ladd is scheduled to join us later. For those of you who are online, if the occasion arises that you would like, when we have the public, a public hearing, if you would like to make a statement, please raise your hand on the function on the Zoom, in the Zoom program. I would like to note this evening that Rick Dupere has been moved from being our alternate to a voting member. Rick has been an alternate for several years and a very good one, and I'm pleased to have him on the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. We have the approval of the minutes.
So move, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I would like to actually find out if, to go in order. So let's
Oh, we're gonna
try,
Vote on each one.
let's vote on each one just in case. It's been a while on some of these. So we have the first, April 12th. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any omissions or corrections? Hearing none, I call for a vote. Doreen? Yes.
Roger Beely, Rick King,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes.
Russell Scudder.
yes,
Thank you. The next in order is the May 17th meeting. Do I hear a motion?
Are we doing the April 26th?
I'm sorry, yes, we are. Let's do the April 26th. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a
Second.
second?
Second.
Thank you. Do I hear any corrections or omissions? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Rachel Hendrickson,
Yes.
Roger Beely,
I think she got her mic on mute.
okay, Rachel Hendrickson,
Yes.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
Rick King,
Yes.
Richard Dupere,
Yes.
Russell Scudder.
yes,
Thank you. And now we will do Monday, May 17th. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Do I hear, Roger, did you second?
Yes.
Thank you. Do I hear any omissions or corrections? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Rachel Hendrickson,
Yes.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
Rick King,
Yes.
Richard Dupere,
Yes.
Russell Scudder.
yes,
Thank you. The We have had a resignation on the board. Our chair, Nick McGee, has resigned for personal reasons. And we really appreciate the work that he has done. He has been an outstanding leader of the planning board. He's going to be missed. But tonight is the night for elections of the new chair. The secretary is Roger Beely, and Roger is going to conduct the election.
Thank you, Rachel. Yes, I am going to call for the nominations for chair for the remainder of the existing term, which is the end of this calendar year. Are there any nominations?
I make a motion, we nominate Rachel Henderson.
I'll second that. I'll second that.
I'll third it.
Can you call for a vote, Roger?
Oh, sure. I'll call for a vote.
Yes.
She's got her mic
Roger
on.
Bailey,
Yes.
Rick Manking,
Yes.
Richard Dupere,
Yes.
Russell Scudder.
Yes.
Thank you. Big shoes to fill. That leaves the vacancy for the vice chair of the planning board. And now as the chair, I can conduct the election for the vice chair. And I am looking for nominations for the vice chair. And if I don't immediately hear anybody, I would like to nominate Rick Manking as the vice chair of the planning board. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Are there other nominations? Then the nominations are closed. We will call for a vote. Doreen?
Rachel Hendrickson,
Yes?
Roger Bailey,
Yes.
Rick Manking,
As long as Rachel doesn't miss a meeting. Yes.
Richard Dupere,
Yes.
Russell Scudder.
Yes.
I appreciate your willingness to serve, Rick. I'm going to be going from the next meeting. Actually, I'm leaving in 10 minutes, so if you could just kind of take
Yeah.
over here. I'm looking forward to working with you and the whole board. I think we've got an excellent team.
Me as well.
The first item on the agenda, P2M Development LLC, request a site plan amendment review for 238 Gorham Road, assessors map R38, lot 27. Jamel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. and Congratulations to your new hosts, both of you. So this proposal, if you remember, is in the B2 zoning district at the former Nara restaurant along Gorham Road. So the applicant was actually last before the board in mid-May. And just as a reminder, the applicant's proposing a change of use from the existing restaurant and residential use to a business services use. The proposal also includes site modifications such as a new wooden and metal fence, a removal of HVAC equipment and some second floor additions, some repairs to the roof, new exterior paint and new overhead doors. So as previously noted in the last review, the zoning district does require a 15-foot landscape buffer along the Gorham Street frontage. The applicant is planning to provide additional plantings in the existing berm area along Gorham Road to help meet the intent of the standard. So the applicant should be prepared to discuss these enhancements. And as requested by the board, the applicant did provide detailed photo simulations that depict the existing conditions of the building and the proposed conditions. The applicant should be sure to share those as well. And staff did provide the board with a draft motion with conditions for your consideration this evening. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. And for the applicant, please state your name.
Thank you. I'm Donna Kane. It's very nice to be here. I always wondered if we would ever get back to in-person meetings, and it's really great. So thank you. I am going to let's see. Share the screen. There we go. Okay. So we were here in May. We had a number of items that the board asked us to look at. We took them all seriously. And we have made some changes to the proposal. All right, now, there we go. First off, with the sign, we're going to totally take the sign down. And then instead of leaving the signposts up as we were before and putting the address there, we're going to put the address on the peak of the building. I did talk to the public safety folks about that, and they gave us the standards for that. Instead of the chain link fence, which we were originally proposing, instead we're going to do guardrail with the wood face on it. That'll be much lower, not as intrusive, but it will still provide the security needed. We have the landscape berm. All of those all the lamp posts are going to come down. At the meeting, we had some board members had given some feedback on doing wall-mounted lighting instead. And so that's coming up as to what we're going to do with that. But we're going to take that parking lot lighting down. We'll leave the electric service there, cap it off so that it's there for future use. But we'll take that down. And then we still are proposing to remove the broken boards. And you have this landscaping plan in your packet. So there's my cursor. Okay, so a few things. First of all, in Bill Bray's memo, he asked for some sort of demarcation at the entrance. And I talked to Bill about what some options might be. And in doing that, we looked across the street, which this used to be a daycare. It's not there now, but you can see how they use stones at the entrance to mark it off. So what we're proposing is the same thing, is to add a couple of stones on either side here to mark off that entrance. You won't find that in the packet. This is that we just added that once we got those comments back from Bill Bray. So we did add it to that plan. And then you'll see on here what we're doing is right now there's a combination of abrevieties and junipers. And what we're going to do is fill in with them with some purple silvergrass and daylilies to give it a little more interest, a little more color, and to provide a little more screening. Both of those plants are included in your the list of plantings for site that are included in site plan review. And then lastly, it's going to get weeded, bark mulch down. And because this is the maintenance facility, there will be folks right there on site, and it will be their responsibility to maintain it, to water it, make sure those new plants get established. The other plants are pretty well established right now and can tolerate a lot more, but those new plants are going to need a little bit of care as they get going, and the folks that work there will be taking care of that. This is the photometrics plan for the wall mounted lighting, and you can see for this particular use, because the public's not coming there, and because this is it's a low intense use in terms of the number of people that will be there, this level of lighting actually works very well for the applicant. However, it wouldn't work well for other users. And so what we have suggested is that there be a condition of approval added on that would highlight the need to look at lighting if there was a new user. Now to get into the changes to the building. We have, you can see on top, that's the existing. For the front, there's no demolition that's going to happen. None of those sections of the building are going to come off. It's all going to get a fresh coat of paint, two-tone gray, so it won't have the contrast that it has now. It'll be more subtle. There's always been a series of faux windows in there and before they had awnings. So instead of what was there, we're adding a more contemporary look, which just blocks off that area, adds a trim board and a sill board, and just to break up that expanse. And you can see on the bottom on the entrance there where the address is going to go. That entrance isn't going to get a lot of use. It very rarely will it be used because all of the activity will happen in the back. And so, but it's got good visibility. So that's that. This is the side. And so on the side here, you can see all the HVAC units right here. And this angle was taken so you can see how those additions jut out in the back. And so this side of the building, for some reason, is vinyl siding. The rest of the building itself is a concrete block building. It's got texture 111 on 3 sides of it. And so this will still say is the vinyl, and instead of this barn door, it will become this overhead door. And you can see the guardrail in here. For the actual purposes, the face of that guardrail would be turned around so that it would face the road. But you can see the guardrail where the location of where the guardrail will be and how much lower key that is. Instead of 6 feet, this is now more like 30 inches. And so it doesn't have a tremendous amount of visibility. And then we have the back of the building. And so I talked in the proposal about the need to make the back of the building secure. So I want to bring your attention. This over here is a hot water heater. There's also some carts that have been brought over. There's some stuff in the carts. And it's not the first accumulation of items in the back of the building. And that's why the guardrail is being proposed. That the guardrail is, if somebody wanted to get through it, they probably could get through it, but it will certainly be a deterrent. And I think having activity in the building, which should also be a deterrent for that. So you can see these additions back here. They're in rough shape. There's posts. There's just posts sitting on top of pavement, or in some cases there is a concrete sidewalk that runs right alongside the building. And so they need to come down. They're not safe. I included this picture in here because I want to bring your attention. See this board right here? I don't know if can you see my cursor and that board? That is the evidence of the old trim. So the old roof line, so this just came out as a dormer off the edge of that, but you can see where the old dormer line was. And so that's what we use to pull this together. So that takes all of this off. There is a door there now, and this will be the main entrance that will get used by the folks that, sorry, oh, all right. Keep my hands away from that. So this will, that will be the main entrance to the building, a couple of overhead doors there, but you can see now it doesn't want me to use my cursor. All of the HVAC equipment is gone. The original pitch of the roof is back. It's probable that the roof is gonna need a whole new roof on it in the back part of the building. And again, a fresh coat of paint for that. I didn't do the other side of the building, the side of the building that faces Shaw's, because it's got such dense foliage. The trees there are so dense that you can't see it, but it also has the same texture 111. It has the same treatment now, and it will be painted to be consistent with the rest of the building. And then we added what could be available parking back there, just to show the number of spaces with an extra wide travel aisle. And so there's plenty of parking in the back. All of the parking will be in the back of the building. All of the activity will happen in the back of the building. The front is really just going to be a pass-through. So that's all I have. I think that there was one other item that was included in the staff report about utilities, and it was from the Scarborough Sewer District. That has been taken care of. There is no physical change to the connection. The actual connection to the building is going to stay the same. So the need to get additional approval by the district and the trustees of the district isn't necessary. So I am happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. This is subject to a public hearing. Is there anyone on Zoom or in the room that would like to comment? If so, please raise your hand. If you are in the room, come up to the podium. Jamel is going to take a look at whether there is anybody in the audience. All right, in that case, public comment is closed, and I will turn to the board. Rick Meinking, from your new important position, do you have comments, please?
Well, we've seen this before, and I think they've responded nicely to the first round of comments. And I think staff is generally comfortable with their answers. I'm happy to see that those lights, I won't say they're ugly, but those lights that are there now are going to be gone. That's a great cosmetic fix. The wall packs, I think there's a note just to make sure they're full cut off, and according to your photometrics, it looks like they're, nothing's hitting the abutters. I will ask a question. Do you know if they're 3000 K?
They are the lower level.
Okay, so they're 3000 K.
Right, right.
Okay,
They're not the blue white,
right.
they're the
They're
yellow
kind of a
light.
yellowish. And
Yes.
those also can be dark sky, not
Yes.
just.
Yes.
So there's a couple waiver requests here. I think I'm generally okay with that, given the fact that they're not doing any pavement work. If the town engineer is okay with whatever happens to with all the construction going on or the renovations going on, I think I'm comfortable with waiver from the stormwater and erosion. Otherwise, I'm comfortable with this, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Rick DePerry.
I like the way it looks. I like the paint color you chose. I just have a couple questions. The HVAC that's coming off the roof, where is the HVAC now?
That was for the restaurant. I think it was probably for the hibachis.
Yeah.
And so there's quite a bit of them there, and there's no need for that anymore.
Right. So do you have an air conditioning unit for this building though?
There is
100
no air
degrees out.
conditioning in there now, no.
Like no air conditioning or anything like that? Okay. It's 100 degrees out. Is there a transformer or a dumpster?
We're not planning a dumpster for this site. I don't think that it'll be needed. There will be the driver, the maintenance folks will be going to other facilities and we'll be able to use those dumpsters. And if at some point a dumpster is needed, it would go in the back and take up some of those parking spaces, the additional parking spaces.
Okay. And then it just looks like you have overhead service from the utility, so you don't have.
Yeah.
Transformer. All right, that's all I have. I think it looks nice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Beely.
I think they pretty much responded to our comments at the previous meeting. The building is improved. I'm pleased to see that. I don't really have too much. I really do think they've listened to what we had to say the first time and they've responded to everything. And I think both Ricks have covered just about everything. So I'm all set.
Thank you. Mr. Scudder?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and congratulations to you as well. I just wanted to pick up on that comment you made about the lighting and the potential for a new user needing a different type of lighting and maybe a condition. Can you explain a little bit more about that? I didn't quite follow what you were getting at.
Well, the lighting isn't, if you had a retail use, for example, you'd want your lighting levels to be consistent throughout the site. And that's not the case here. There's lighting around the building. And so it wouldn't be good for a retail user. It wouldn't be good for a user where the public was coming in. And so instead of providing a full level of lighting, this lower level of lighting is actually preferable because it doesn't encourage the public to come in by mistake. So, we're just acknowledging that it is good for this use, but there's a good chance that it wouldn't be good for other uses.
Sure. Okay. I follow you now. Thank you for the clarification. I wanted to make sure I understood what you were saying. It's sufficient for your needs now. It meets our standard. So that's fine. The only other comment I had was in driving by there, are there any rotted siding pieces at this point that would be replaced as well as painted? It looked like there would be.
Well, if they come across them as they're doing the work, and I'm not talking about the demolition because that's all
Sure.
gonna come off. If they find that there's some rotted wood, then they will replace it.
Okay, fair enough. No further comments.
Thank you. I also agree with Rick Meinking that the waivers are reasonable and I think meet the needs that we have. I do want to point out a couple of things. And one is if you do decide to put in a dumpster, we have a requirement that it be screened. So I would suggest that if that is going to happen, you work with the planning department to ensure that there is no problem there. I'm assuming that you're leaving the external access to the second floor. That was
Yes.
a question. Okay, thank you. That takes care of that. And a question that I had on the fence. I do think what you've proposed, the lower fence, the guardrail is much preferred to a stockade fence around there. But you still have the issue of being able to have a gate that opens
Yep.
for the fire department. So is the gate going to be locked?
The gate will probably have a Knox box on it. Yeah.
All right, then, and that's what I wanted to confirm,
Yeah.
that there would be a Knox box on it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think this is a dramatically improved application from the last one. I appreciate all of the work that you went through, taking into consideration all of our comments and concerns, and you have presented us with a very thorough response and application. So we appreciate that and thank you.
Thank you.
If there is no other comments from the board, I do have a draft motion. I move to approve the site plan amendment titled Pratt Abbott Maintenance Facility as depicted on the plan set prepared by LK Planning / Sebago Technics dated 6/9/21 with the following findings, waivers, and conditions. Findings. The applicant is proposing a change of use from the existing restaurant use to a business services use. The proposal also includes site modifications such as a new wooden metal guardrail, removal of HVAC equipment and second floor additions, repairs to the roof, new exterior paint, and new overhead doors. The property is located at 238 Gorham Road and is within the Regional Business B2 zoning district. The planning board has reviewed the application and supporting documentation and finds that the proposed design of the site plan adequately addresses the site plan review and zoning ordinance requirements for site utilization and layout, access, internal vehicular movement, parking, pedestrian ways, landscaping, stormwater management, lighting, architecture, signage, utilities, and storage. Waivers. 1, permit the request to not submit the required pre- and post-development conditions and stormwater plan for water quality treatment, given that the applicant is not proposing any new impervious area on the site. Conditions. Number 1, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall, A, address the traffic peer review comments in the memo from Traffic Solutions dated 6/21/21. B, provide confirmation that the proposed light fixtures are full cutoff as required by the site plan review ordinance. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 2, any change of use will require review of site elements such as lighting and parking under the provisions of the site plan review ordinance. 3, prior to the issuance of a sign permit, the applicant shall provide a final signage plan. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 4, prior to the start of construction, a pre-construction meeting is required. The meeting shall include appropriate town staff, the developer, and their site contractor, and is to be coordinated through the planning department. Is there a second?
Second.
I believe I got Rick Meinking came in first. Doreen, for the vote, please.
Rachel
Oh,
Henderson.
excuse me, Roger?
Yeah, just a couple of things. On the waivers, should there be some mention about the historic and architectural resources on the waivers?
Staff decided that it wasn't a relevant waiver request, just given that no historical elements are on the property. So it was taken off of the waiver on the motion.
Okay, and I'm just wondering about number 3, the sign permit, seeing there's not going to be a sign.
You guys can remove that if you want. It's a general boilerplate condition, just in case they do decide to put a sign on the property.
Is that okay, Roger?
I guess so.
Well, if they do want to put it, they have to come before
Sure, yeah,
before the planning department, and that gives them a heads up. Any other
Yeah,
comments?
It's just saying prior to issuance of the sign. Okay, all right, okay.
Other comments? Doreen?
Rachel Hendrickson,
Yes?
Roger Beely,
Yes,
Rick Manking,
Yes.
Richard Dupere,
Yes.
Russell Scudder.
Yes.
And that has passed, and we can move on to the next one. Old Port Realty LLC requests a site plan amendment review for 91 County Road, Assessors Map R15, Lot 53. For the applicant. I'm sorry, for the staff first.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Madam Chair. So the applicant for this project is proposing to demolish the existing farmhouse and provide additional landscaping provisions once the structure is removed. This is actually the same project that was approved by the board in late 2019. However, the approval did expire, so they're back before you guys. Staff is generally comfortable with the materials and did provide you all with the draft motion for your consideration. Turn it back to you.
Now, the applicant. Is the applicant here? Is the applicant online?
Sorry, that was my fault. I was looking for Sean Frank, but I'm hoping I get the right one instead.
Hello, I'm here instead of Sean Frank this evening. My name's Henry Hess. I'm a landscape architect with Sebago Technics, representing the applicant this evening. So as Jamel stated, Old Port Realty did previously submit these minor amendments to Scarborough for 91 County Road back in 2019. And due to COVID and in the past year, they just actually weren't able to start any preliminary construction, or in this case, preliminary demolition. So the same plans that were approved with the added landscape, as previously stated by Jamel, were then now, or they have been resubmitted to the board and to the town for review. And we're hoping that if staff is still comfortable, be able to move forward with the project. There's really, again, outside of demolition of the existing vacant home on the property there, there is no other changes to the site. So the parking will stay the same. The existing buildings, the existing Dunkin' Donuts and the existing pad site will stay the same as previously approved. And we're just looking to move forward with the amendments. We may demo the existing house there. With that, I'd happily turn it over to staff with any comments, questions. Happy to answer anything you have.
Thank you. We actually, at this point, turn it over to the public for any public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this? You got anybody online, Angela? And nobody's jumped up to run to the microphone here. So I declare that the public comment is closed and ask for comments from the board. Those of you who have a comment or a question, rather than going in order. We have seen this before. It's been approved before with one change, basically. Any comments, any questions?
Let's just say we've seen it before and it's still the same, so I would approve it.
All right. Roger or Russell?
I have nothing.
I actually drove out by there to, it's really a shame that the building couldn't have been repurposed. It's kind of a grand old building, but I can certainly understand the desire of the applicant to, demolish it with the hopes of developing the other, something else on the other foundation, so.
Roger, that's a great point there. The applicant did look for some tenants over the last couple of years here. And at this point, when they went to resubmit previously and demolish the building, that they had reached a point at which they did not fill a need and were not able to find tenants at that time. So
I have a question of the applicant. And how old is that building that's going to be demolished?
that is a great question.
Yes, it is.
I actually do
My
not
question,
off the
my
top of my
question
head
is,
have that answer for
basically,
you.
my question is, does it have any historical significance?
In, I believe, our previous research in 2019, we did not find a historical significance of it. But Madam Chair, I do not have that information for you right at the top of my head.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I ask, how about structurally? Is that building in good shape or does it need a lot of work?
No, I believe that building does need a substantial amount of work.
Okay, all right, because I was thinking about possibly relocating, seeing if somebody would be interested in relocating it, so, okay.
Sure.
All right, thank you. If there are no further questions, we have a motion. I move to approve the site plan amendment titled Amended Site Plan Scarborough Crossing proposed by Old Port Realty LLC as depicted on the plan set prepared by Sebago Technics dated 6/2/21 with the following findings and conditions. Findings: the applicant is proposing to demolish the existing farmhouse on the property and provide additional landscaping provisions once the structure is removed. The property is located with the Town and Village Centers Transition TVC2 zoning district and is identified on the Town of Scarborough tax maps as map R15, lot 53. The planning board has reviewed the application and supporting documentation and finds that the proposed design of the site plan adequately addresses the site plan review and zoning ordinance requirements for site utilization and layout, access, internal vehicular movement, parking, pedestrian ways, landscaping, stormwater management, lighting, architecture, signage, utilities, and storage. Conditions. Number one, prior to the issuance of a demolition permit, the applicant shall A, address the comments in Woodard and Curran's civil peer review memo dated 6/22/21. B, coordinate with the fire department in regards to fire suppression leading up to the construction of the new structure on the site. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roger, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I heard Roger beat you out on that one. I heard Roger first. Are there questions or comments on the draft motion? Seeing none, hearing none, Doreen, you call for the vote, please.
Rachel Hendrickson,
Yes,
Roger Beely,
Yes.
Rick King,
Yes.
Richard Dufresne,
Yes.
and Roger Scudder.
Yes.
thank you. And we now move on to Crossroads Holdings LLC. Requests a subdivision amendment review for the Innovation District subdivision at the Downs, Assessors Map U 53, lots 1 to 55. Jamel?
Thank you. The applicant here is proposing to combine lots 48 and 49 in this Innovation District subdivision into a single lot that will consist of 1.79 acres. And staff is generally comfortable with this proposal. And did provide you guys with the board with a draft motion with conditions for your consideration. Turn it back to you.
Thank you. And for the applicant?
Thank you. Drew Gagnon with Goral Palmer, representing Crossroad Holdings LLC. I'm just going to share the screen real quick. I will be extremely quick with this. We are in front of you tonight to propose a combination of two lots of 48 and 49, which can be seen right here by my mouse. It's pretty much that simple. And that's all I have to offer to this. I just wanted to visually show you where we are on the Innovation District. Thank you.
Short and sweet. Thank you. This is subject to public comment. Is there any member of the public in the room or online that would like to comment? No stampeding crowd. We will move on to the board. Let's start with Rick King.
I don't have any issues on this at all. No questions.
Thank you.
I don't have any issues with this at all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Roger,
No, I'm all set, thanks.
Russell.
My only question is, we had, I think earlier, talked about, and we had requested, I think, an overall subdivision plan that shows the all of the approved site plan driveways. I wonder if the applicant can speak to that. Is that available to us?
We actually just discussed with town staff earlier in the week about pulling that all together. It does take a little bit to get all the CAD files since not one firm did the entire thing. So we're working on getting that to you guys as soon as we possibly can.
Thank you. Let me just remind any members of the public out there that as part of the initial discussions around the Innovation District, the board and the developer anticipated that these lots, various lots might be combined and reconfigured as they were sold or as new people or businesses came in. This is something in the line of what we have reviewed before with a combination of two lots. I have no further questions. We have a draft motion. I move to approve the project title 6 amendment overall subdivision plan proposed by Crossroads Holding LLC as depicted on the plan set prepared by Goral Palmer dated 6/7/21 with the following findings and conditions. Findings, the proposed Fifth Amendment subdivision. Is that fifth or sixth? Jamel?
Sorry, that should read 6.
Okay, thank you. The proposed Sixth amended subdivision plan includes the combination of lots 48 and 49 into one lot. It will consist of 1.79 acres. The subdivision is located within the Crossroads Plan Development CPD zoning district and is further identified on the Town of Scarborough tax maps as map U53, Lot 4. Conditions, all other relevant existing conditions from the July 22nd, 2019 Planning Board subdivision approval will remain in effect. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second.
I got Rick Perry as the second. Any comments on the draft motion? Hearing none, Doreen, will you call the roll?
Rachel Hendrickson,
Yes.
Roger Bailey,
Yes.
Dick King,
Yes.
Rick DuPerry,
Yes.
Russell Scudder.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I note that Jen Ladd has joined us. Russell, you are temporarily demoted. You've become an alternate and excuse me, Russell, yeah, and Jen is now promoted to her role as the voting member. And the
Sorry,
next
Russell.
item that we have is Ventinove Holdings LLC requests a site plan review for lot 48 within the Innovation District subdivision of the Downs, Assessors Map U53, lot 48. Jamel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this proposal is located within the now modified Lot 48 within the Innovation District. And the applicant's proposing to construct a 27,940 square foot building that will consist of 2 to 3 tenant spaces for light industrial use. A few comments to go through. The site plan review ordinance requires no more than 1 full service driveway, except when an additional driveway must be provided to prevent traffic hazards or congestion. So the applicant's formally requesting a waiver from the standard and has noted that the northerly driveway will actually be used for truck traffic primarily, while the southern driveway will be utilized primarily for employee parking. So staff has recommended the applicant discuss this design with the board and if any other alternatives were considered. And the board should be sure to provide direction on your comfort with the proposed design. Staff has also offered several comments related to the building elevations provided to the board with the submission package. The applicant will need to provide the required fenestration calculations for the primary elevation facing Center Street. Staff has also recommended additional treatments such as windows along this elevation to provide a little bit more visual interest when viewed from the public street. Staff also recommended a modified overhead door design along the primary elevation, given its orientation towards Center Street. Staff has also suggested some additional buffering provisions along the southern parking area between this project and the Dukas construction project to the south. It also appears that the applicant's utilizing or proposing to utilize a portion of lot 54 to access the site, which is actually the Zoom drain site, if you remember. So a formal access easement will be required for review with future submissions. And finally, staff did note that the overall stormwater scorecard for the Innovation District subdivision will need to be provided with future submissions to ensure compliance with the approved system for the overall subdivision. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. And for the applicant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Nancy St. Clair. I'm with St. Clair Associates. I'm here tonight on behalf of Ventinove Holdings LLC. And the application that was just before you in the consolidation of the 2 lots in the Innovation District was to support this application. We are the reason why you were just asked to consolidate those 2 lots. So this piece of property was originally comprised of 48 and 49 in the Innovation District. Now it will be called 48. It's 1.79 acres in total size. And we're proposing a building that's just under 28,000 square feet on the sites. As you can see, it's 27,940 square feet, sort of an L-shaped building. And as you can see on the colored rendering, the site has access along Center Street, which is on the west side of the property, or on the left side as you're looking at this color elevation. And on the right side, or the east side of the property, it also has frontage on a private way called Immersion Drive, which you folks are familiar with as well. And as Jamel mentioned, we are proposing a light industrial building on this site. The building is set up to accommodate 2, possibly 3 tenants within the building. We envision that one of the tenant spaces would be on the Center Street side of the property. The other space would be on the Immersion Drive side of the property. And the appendage that sticks up there is a shared common dock, which would allow for 3 full-height loading docks. So those are 4-foot-high docks for the building, and they would be shared, as I mentioned. So access to all of those docks would be allowed for the number of tenants that are within the building. We are proposing parking at a ratio of 2 spaces per 1,000 square feet, and there are 56 parking spaces shown on the site plan. The majority of the passenger car parking is on the south side of the building. And as Jamel had mentioned in his commentary, we are proposing a connection to the nearby Zoom Drain site, lot 54 in the Innovation District, which was reviewed and approved by you folks last year. That interconnection allows for shared access with this site and the abutting Zoom Drain site. The owner of Ventinove Holdings and the owner of Zoom Drain are the same person. And so one of the comments that we received from the staff review was to execute an easement between the 2 properties to allow for that shared access, and that is in the works. But this is something that is allowed to be coordinated because of the 2 owners are common with the site. We are proposing some parking off the north edge of the Zoom Drain site that would support the southerly face of this building in order to provide access to the tenant space, which would be on the southeast corner of the building. So I wanted to just kind of get into the building a little bit. These are the architectural elevations that were prepared model size for the proposed building by Gorin Turgeon Architects. And as you can see, each corner of the building, whether it's the southwest corner or the southeast corner, have a bit of their own identity. And that allows for a clear direction for independent tenant spaces. These renderings that you see here have been slightly modified from the ones that are contained in your packet. The reason for that is the staff commentary that we received late last week. One was with the request to add additional fenestration to provide more visual interest on what would be the west side of the building, which is the side facing Center Street, which is the one in the upper left corner. On this, we've added a panel, which is very similar to the panel that is shown on the east side of the building to complement and offset the main entries on the buildings. One of the other comments that we received from staff was with regard to an opportunity to better address continuity of the overhead doors in the loading area with the rest of the building design. So if you look on this plan, you'll see that the view for the overhead doors has been added with a brown material color that is very similar to the panel. So that ties it in. In the older plans that we submitted to you, those were white. So we've added a little bit more color for that. And in the lower corner, you'll see the lower right corner, you'll see the corner of the building adjacent to the dumpster. One of the comments that we did receive was with regard to placement of the dumpster. We looked at a few different alternatives for that. And unfortunately, from a site maneuvering and layout standpoint, the dumpster is pretty much located where it should be from a access and perspective standpoint. But we do recognize that it's in a fairly prominent location off of Immersion Drive. Keith Smith, who will be speaking to you in a few moments, has done a pretty rigorous planting plan around that dumpster to screen it. But in the prior application materials, we had more of the traditional dumpster screening enclosure around that. If you notice on this plan, we've carried over some of the building materials into that, so it fits more in with the building design, making it a little bit less intrusive in that particular corner. But we do need to unfortunately leave it where it is. But we do feel that we can appropriately address it with proper materials for the fencing in the surround area for the site. So one of the big things that was discussed was access and circulation within the site. And I'll go back to our plan for a minute. We looked at a number of different alternatives in order to try to make sure that we had proper safety and access management for the uses that are on the site. So in this particular building, we have the traditional loading dock. So we're dealing with the larger trailer trucks that would be coming in and out of this site. In order to avoid the need for a truck to make a complete turnaround within the site, we've configured the layout such that the trucks would circulate in basically an east-west direction on the northerly end of the site. That would allow them to have the ability, let's say, for example, a truck were coming in and it was going to use one of the dock overhead doors that was facing Immersion Drive. So this location. A truck using that dock would enter from Center Street, drive past the dock appendage, back straight up, unload or load, and then exit onto Immersion Drive and exit the area. Conversely, trucks that used the dock that faces Center Street would do just the reverse. They would enter the site from Immersion, drive past the appendage, back straight into the dock, and then exit straight and come onto Center Street. We feel that this is an appropriate layout to allow the ease of access in the docks to avoid trucks having to make that backup maneuver and spin around within the site. So we feel that that's an efficient use of that loading area. But in looking at the plan, the other thing we wanted to do was to try to segregate that area with those larger trucks from the majority of the employee parking or the passenger vehicle side of the building. So hence we do have an access on the southerly end of the site as well. That's the access that ties into the Zoom drain lot. We're taking advantage of the recommendations throughout not only this district, but good planning and shared access points where we're coming in across the Zoom drain site so that we don't create a new point of access onto Immersion Drive. We're using one that's already been approved and is under construction. The northerly point of access onto Immersion Drive aligns directly opposite the plan that was approved by you folks last year for mainly Tubbs or Euphoria LLC. So that is a direct alignment with them. The 2 points of access that we have on Center Street are located at the northerly and southerly end of the site, and they provide the maximum separation between the truck traffic and the passenger vehicle traffic on the site. Our colored rendering shows the other driveways that have been approved or constructed within this area. Directly across from the site, there are no proposed driveways. There's a wetland in that location, and the plan that was approved further up towards the corner has its access off of Innovation. So there's nothing that's proposed from the site up to the corner. On the lower end of the site, or the southerly end, you'll see this driveway location down in the lower area there. That is the access that was for the truck access that you folks just approved for lot 51. So that's the one that is on the opposite side. The rendering shows the building for Dukas Construction. It is just to the south of the site. It's that yellow box, if you will. And then behind that, a little bit more brown, is the gravel laydown area for Dukas Construction. So their entrance is actually even further down, further away from it. But with the configuration that we have, we do need to seek some waivers from you folks. And we've highlighted and identified all of those waivers in our application materials. They basically pertain to driveway separations simply because of the lot configurations as we've described. They also pertain to the fact that we are proposing 2 points of access on Center Street. We're confident that this layout does represent a good alternative with regard to safety and access management. In our application materials on page 26, we went through a full scenario of the different alternatives that we considered, the pluses and minuses of trying to look at whether we could get away with just having 1 point of access on Center Street. And we really feel that based on our evaluation, the configuration as we have it does represent the best layout from a traffic management and safety standpoint. The plan was reviewed and issued comments by your traffic engineer, your town's traffic engineer, who does indicate that he also supports the layout as we have it. Basically, to overview, we looked at if we were to eliminate the southerly access and combine all points of access at the north end of the site on Center Street, that would require that vehicles, customer or employee vehicles, passenger vehicles that would come into the site would have to enter at this northerly corner, immediately turn to the right, and then park all along the front of the building. We have a quite sizable, nice green space between the building and Center Street that unfortunately would be lost with regard to the configuration change if we were to try to eliminate that site. We wouldn't necessarily have as an efficient parking layout because of the maneuvering and the turns that would have to be made. And we would then introduce all of the employee traffic and the truck traffic at that one location on the northwest corner of the site, which is the location where it's the closest to the next adjacent driveway, which is Score Builders just above us. Conversely, we looked at the alternative of eliminating the north access and using only the south access. We have similar issues with regard to losing that green space along the frontage, but then we also introduced the need to have a truck basically make an S-turn maneuver, come in, do a sharp turn, go across in front of the site, and then turn out. Again, all of those different things that we just discussed are still the same issue in that location. The third alternative that we did was to centrally locate a common shared driveway. That introduces a whole new wrinkle because of the proximity coming in and having to turn in either direction. The ability for a truck to make that sharp maneuver would likely cause the truck to have to stop, back up, renegotiate the turn, that type of thing. So we really feel that the configuration that we have does represent the best layout for that, and that is why we are asking for a waiver on that particular item. We also asked for a couple of other waivers. One was the reduction in the drive aisle width from 25 feet to 24 feet, which has been a relatively common request in the Innovation District, and we're hopeful that you would support that as part of the review process as well. So the other thing that Jamel had mentioned was with regard to stormwater and the scorecard. This site is proposing a lot coverage of 79%. When the original project was designed and all of the infrastructure for stormwater facilities was designed for the Innovation District, the threshold that was used in the original design is 80%. So we are below the original threshold. There was a change that happened and some modifications were made to the approvals to allow some additional impervious cover within the area tributary to Wet Pond 1 in the Innovation District. We are still below the original allocated amount, and although we would happily provide the updated scorecard for you folks, there's really no need to change it because it is still within the original parameters of the site design at 80%. We also looked at the proposed connection onto the Zoom drain lot and what that additional connection would do to the impervious cover on the Zoom drain lot. Obviously, it does increase it, but again, we're just below that 80% threshold. So again, we're still in that similar situation where we are within the confines of the original approval, but we would be happy to provide the updated scorecard for staff to keep track of things with regard to that. So I'm going to turn it over to Keith Smith to talk a little bit about the landscaping, the lighting, and the program for that, those elements of the site.
Good evening, Keith Smith Landscape Architecture. I'll give you a little overview of what we're proposing for landscape here. You guys are familiar with the site. So we have Center Street. Nancy just talked about the 2 access points. Along the north side, there's 5 existing trees from this particular site that I've shown on the plan. These five trees along Center Street are part of the Center Street public right-of-way landscaping that's proposed. Along the northern part of the site, Jamal, the staff had commented about buffering between these 2 properties. This plan is updated from what was submitted. So I'm actually showing that there are 4 existing arborvitae that buffer from the existing building. And then this open area here is between the laydown yard and the employee parking. And there was discussion of whether we should put additional plantings in that location. Our sense is that that's fairly open. We do not have a lot of space for additional landscaping. And the overall proposed, where we're not doing specific plants, is a showy wildflower mix, which is consistent with what's proposed for DC construction and for the Zoom drain site. So these natural areas are all going to kind of flow together, and the showy wildflower mix will have plants that are going to get to a 3-foot height, and some may even shoot up higher than that. So at this point, I don't think there's additional need for buffer between those 2, at least showing that along the building, there's already some landscaping. As we come into this site, previously with the Zoom drain site, there were 4 trees that were located on that northern edge. With that, I've relocated those. Those are larger red maples. So there's 1 there, and then 3 along Immersion Drive. We've added a larger tree in here. That's a Princeton elm, which will give that facade kind of a stately view as you enter in the future. It'll kind of give a terminus to that entrance. And along the building, Nancy talked about the larger green area along Center Street. So along that facade, this is the primary employee main entrance, customer entrance. So I've left this corner kind of opened and enhanced the landscaping along this edge. There's some amelanchier, some smaller ornamental trees, native ornamental trees along the front. And then the front, I have some shrubs. There's some dogwood and some Rus aromatica. It's fragrant sumac, sorry. Along the side, there's grasses along the edge. Calamagrostis will get like 5 feet tall, and then some lower ones about 3 feet tall along there. Along this edge, there's more dogwood. It's not a drip edge, so the dogwood, which is a deciduous shrub, can handle that. There's not going to be dripping on it, whereas along the drip edges, I use the perennials so that they can handle that and come back in the spring without a problem. Again, more grasses along the front side, tied in some grass screening around the transformer from the Zoom drain site. And then along the front, there's some more shrubs. And in the back dumpster area, as Nancy had mentioned, we have a transformer and the dumpster in that location. So around that area, I have lower grasses, which is consistent with what has happened on some of the adjacent sites. as you come into the dumpster. And then behind it and around it and near the transformer, I'm using a larger shrub just to give it some mass. It's a viburnum, which will ultimately get to be like 6 feet tall. It's kind of horizontal branch. It is deciduous. It has great autumn color, and it has white flowers. So with that, I think the scale will bring down the dumpster enclosure and provide some mass and balance that corner off. Outside of that, I have a bike rack located in front right there, and then there's a bike rack at the other entrance. One of the staff comments was to add some seating near the entrances. So with that, on this plan, I don't know if you can see right next to it, there's a red. I put it right next to the bike rack in both locations so that it can function dual duty if someone comes in, takes their bag off, wants to sit on the bench and lock their bike up. But it also provides seating at the necessary locations just outside the entrances. So outside of that, I think that pretty much the lighting. So I don't have the photometrics. You guys have seen the photometrics. The one staff question was if the fixtures, the building mounted fixtures were full cutoffs, and they are, as are the freestanding fixtures. So they're all full cutoffs. And that is on the specification sheet that was submitted. So with that, any other? The Princeton Elm? Yeah, that's the Princeton Elm right there.
So the reason I asked Keith to kind of point out the Princeton Elm location actually stems from a comment that was made on the architectural elevations. That wall that is to the east of the Princeton Elm location, that triangular planter area there, there are no windows in that wall. It's a warehouse portion of the building. But that Princeton Elm and the plantings that are along the edge of the building there will serve to buffer and screen that wall, even though there are no windows in that location. So we wanted to point that out. That Princeton Elm will be a stately tree in that nice island area. So that, coupled with the lower plantings along the wall edge itself, we feel would be appropriate in lieu of windows in that location. So the only other thing that I would like to ask respectfully of you folks is that we would like to be able to, if the board is willing, to seek conditional approval to address the comments that have been issued by staff and the peer reviewers. They are, in our opinion, relatively straightforward and can be easily addressed through coordination with staff, but we would like to seek conditional site plan approval tonight.
Thank you. I assume your presentation is done?
Yes.
Okay, so it is now time for public comment. Is there any member of the public, either online or here in the room, that would like to comment? All right, thank you. Before we begin, I want to make a kind of an opening statement here, and that is that what we're seeing here, and we're going to see at other times, is what we see happening is we are going to start to see infill. We are going to see buildings on either side of a vacant lot. We've already seen that, I think, with Quick Express. And that means that whatever building is going into that space has some challenges laid out, not through its own, not through anything it did or the developer did, but simply because there are limitations on the lot and limitations that have already been caused by what's going on in the abutting lots. I also want to point out and remind the folks, the one person, I guess, who's listening, and those people in the room, that the decisions of this board non-precedential. In other words, a waiver that we grant to one condition and one building is not a precedent for granting a waiver to another building or another plan. So we need to look at all of these in effect de novo and not say, well, we automatically kind of automatically do 24 feet for the driveway. We have to really think about that as a board. And I think one of the things that we really need to consider at this point, and I would appreciate the board members weighing in on it, is the request for, out of the 4 waivers, which is kind of a large number of waiver requests, that the request for the 2 curb cuts is something that deserves a fair amount of discussion. So I'd appreciate that on the part of the board members. And who would like to go first after I've said that?
I'll jump in since you mentioned the curb cuts. So I'm okay with the waivers. I did look at the curb cuts as well, but where they're actually combining 2 lots, I guess I'm thinking there'd be a curb cut for each lot if they hadn't combined the 2. But either way, they might not be on the. I'm okay with the waivers and the curb cuts. Speaking to Rachel's point about the challenges that we see as these lots get developed, the snow storage on one side looks a little light where you have the easement. And it's not a lot of snow storage area laid out there. So, and that may not be an issue depending on who the tenants are. I noticed that you didn't have tenants lined up for this building yet. So potentially they won't need all those parking spots and you can use some of that for snow storage. And of course you can always haul snow too, but that was one thing that I did note when I was looking over the plans. I actually, because you did such a good job of describing the truck movement, actually kind of reinforces my decision to think those curb cuts are okay. I think that's about it. Other than don't put too many shrubbery around your transformer. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you. Another board member. Jen, why don't we go to you?
Sure. Just in terms of the waivers, I'll start from the bottom up. I don't see an issue with the parking aisle width. In this case, that makes sense to me given the rest of your site plan. And I kind of feel like the waiver requests for driveway separation and the distance from property lines has to do with the number of full access driveways. I'm curious, Nancy, if you happen to know offhand, if you were to have a single driveway access onto Center Street, does that absolve you of waivers, the other 2 waivers needed, separation from the existing driveways and property lines?
I don't believe so.
My guess is it would be pretty close if that was even possible. So, you know, I liked Bill Bray's summary of this, and I do kind of think this is a good option for accommodating large truck traffic and loading docks in particular on a pretty sizable building on some, you know, sort of small lots given the ratios. And I, you know, when I looked at this site plan, I thought of a couple of other sites that we have looked at in the past where just based on the property geometry and the development program, they really needed to provide pretty substantial impervious area in order to make those maneuvers. And when you think about the frequency of how often that would be happening versus the complexity of some of those turning movements and the you know, potential conflicts between other, you know, single occupancy vehicle parking and maneuvering, I actually, I'm in favor of this option as a way to sort of separate the truck traffic and the other car parking traffic. And I mean, the straight line is pretty much ideal for maneuvering vehicles of that size. So that's my thought on that.
Thank you. Roger? Roger, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on the the number of lots and the volume of development on this site in the whole innovation district. It seems to me almost every, or not everyone, but quite a few of the proposals we've had to deal with the distances between driveways, the amount of access drives, the width of the driveways, et cetera, like that. And I think a lot of it has to do with what the building that's going on the property and depending on what kind of wetlands and things like that. So I think we have to be flexible regarding this development like that. I think the landscaping plays a big role when it comes to these access drives and everything. I think this arrangement is very good. I agree with Bill Bray. You're really separating the heavy truck traffic from the pedestrian or the regular passenger traffic. So I think we have to be somewhat flexible regarding, I think we're going to be confronted with these distances between accesses to the sites, as well as, almost in most cases, because of just the way the buildings are being situated on the particular lots. I think they're doing a pretty good job in the overall development so far of trying to line up the driveway. So I think we should, that's worked out well. So I guess I've made my point about the traffic and the driveways and everything like that. I just want to ask about the comment that staff made about the landscaping along the southern parking lot. And if I'm not mistaken, lot 53, is that Dugas? Is that who that is? Dugas Construction?
That's correct.
What's the question? Sorry.
Lot 53, right below.
That's Dukas.
That's Dugas. Do we have any idea of what kind of, if there's any kind of landscaping along that, Jamal? I know it's on Dugas's property, but they seem to be limited as to what they can do on this particular parcel.
I was just going to jump in. I believe on that side of the property line, they have a swale and conveyance system to get back out to Center Street. There's stormwater. So if they do have some plantings, I'm not sure what they are or how they're positioned to avoid.
You're talking about Dugas now, right?
Yes. Yep. Dukas.
Okay. Because it sounds to me like the applicant is saying it's not feasible for them to consider putting any plantings along there. That's what I heard. I'm not sure. Is that correct?
Hello again, Keith Smith. There's not much space for planting. And I think, and also I think the ordinance that's being referenced at that point is relating to views onto the site, and it's more related to service areas and stuff of that sort versus kind of the main entrance sort of the building. It says to screen garbage collection areas, loading areas, waste storage, commercial vehicle parking, and the like, related to what was being referenced. So, and that's really not the intent of the buffer right there. So what I was stating And I did look at the Dukas Construction submittal. I didn't know if I saw the final plan, but in their submittal, they had proposed the exact same ground cover that we are proposing. So the way I envisioned that space would blend together. And within that ground cover, I was saying there are some plants that get a decent enough height that I think it will provide, a smooth transition between the two properties. I think from our side, we're looking out at a laydown yard versus them looking, at a decent facade of a building.
Oh, okay. I guess the only other thing that I had a note of is they answered the fenestration, I believe. I don't know if Russell and Jen feels the same way, but when you're doing this Zoom, when we have in-house, it's very hard to even see the boards or anything. So I missed a lot of what they were talking about in terms of the landscaping and the fenestration and stuff like that, other than the verbal. I couldn't make out what they were doing. So,
It's tough to follow that pointer.
Pardon me?
It's tough to follow the pointer on
I
Zoom.
couldn't even see the pointer. The only other thing, I guess, from staff's comments is the comment about the formal access easement should be provided for review. Where it's on the lots of 54 and 48 are owned by the same. Just make sure that's done, I guess. And other than that, I think it's pretty good use of the property. So.
Thank you. Russell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Any of my little scratch notes here have been addressed, but I want to just talk about, you mentioned, Madam Chair, the whole traffic flow and the idea of the two curb cuts here. I have to agree with our experts who indicate that the truck movement through this site is really optimized the way it's laid out here. I understand that our setback from the property line and the other adjoining property curb cuts are not in per the code, but this layout with this size building on this lot, it seems to make the most sense. That's my sense of this. So from the standpoint of the waiver for the driveway separation and the distance from the property line, I think it works in this particular case, notwithstanding your comment about not being precedential. I know you were referring to the aisle width, but here we're talking about something that's been done before. Have we addressed all of the concerns as it relates to the impervious area? That business of, I don't have the benefit of knowing what was done in the master plan. I'm finding myself in this recurring role here where I don't have the history that you all have, but the applicant indicated that the scorecard showed 79%. And I think the overall project was approved at 80%. Maybe somebody could fill in a little bit more there. Are we all comfortable with that?
Just a moment, Russell. Jamel, could you remind folks of what the percentages are, Angela?
Yeah, I can fill in. Just a little background. When DEP, it goes back to that stormwater permit and how it's tracked. And because we were showing success with the tracking that we're doing for traffic, we have our scorecard for traffic, which you saw in the packet. Where we see the cumulative effect in per lot, and you can see that totaled up. seeing that success, DEP was willing for us to do that locally, tracking the same type of thing with the impervious area. So we do the same exact thing. There's a scorecard which should be submitted with each site plan application where we can see and track that square foot impervious area so that we know that if you go out there, you'll see the very large pond. Eventually that will maximize the volume in it, and there'll be more, obviously, ponds or other stormwater features out there. And so really the onus is on the local municipality to track that, unfortunately, is how we've kind of set this up, which I think can be successful because we've done that with the DOT kind of tracking the traffic. Now we need to do it with the stormwater. And so it's just this little bumpy getting going, I think, at the beginning. But we really need to see that so that we have a good starting point to kind of keep moving forward with each lot and see that progression. Because this particular development affects 2 lots. And so making sure that we're tracking that accurately so that we're not backpedaling and with the next application saying, okay, what happened on 48 and 49, which doesn't exist anymore, and now with 54, you know what I mean? I'm already seeing a little bit of confusion that frankly worries me a little in that respect. Not that we won't get there, but we need to start on a good foot, that's all. I hope that helped, Russell. I'm sorry, I went a little
But
around the bend.
it helps. I'm just wondering, is it the case that we need something additional from the applicant to help us reach our decision as it relates to stormwater or not in this instance?
So, yeah, and so in my opinion, which the board can discuss, and that I think St. Clair did a really good job, I think, it's spelling out really the details of what they're doing. So I'm confident that it's all there and all the pieces are there. It's really just missing that fundamental spreadsheet. So I guess if we get there tonight and that's your one hang up, I don't know if there's something you can do with the consent or something like that. Like, I'm feeling confident in the information that was provided. I trust the information Nancy has given us and we've gone through it, and I have no issues with your stormwater pieces. So I just put that for the board to discuss, I guess.
Okay.
You all set, Russell?
I am. I just wanted to be sure that we covered that. That seemed to be one of those points that stormwater is a very important element here. And if the sense of the board is that we're satisfied and the staff is satisfied, then I'm fine.
Thank you. I've got some more questions. The southern boundary line, what's the buffer? What's the distance between the end of the parking spaces and the end of the property?
It's about 3 feet at its narrowest point.
So actually there's, I believe, supposed to be 10 feet. Is it 10 feet in between?
That's for driveways. along
That's
the
for
property.
driveways. Okay, thank you. And at the northern boundary line,
That varies at its tightest point. I believe it's on the order of about 6 or 7 at its tightest point.
I took a look, I drove out there today and took a look at Score Builders and the berm that they had and the amount of buffering that they had. And while it certainly is adequate for their building, I'm concerned about the tightness of that driveway that on this lot. I keep getting the feeling that we have a building that is slightly too large for the lot. And every attempt has been made to adjust things to fit it onto the lot. And as I look at it, it's still not quite fitting. You have actually, in effect, 4 curb cuts for this lot. One of them actually is the zoomed rain lot. A second lot, a second curb cut to the north on Immersion Drive, and 2 curb cuts on Center Street. I agree that the way you've got the tractor trailer access and it really works because it eliminates all of that turning space and the problems that we had when we looked at the last one, lot 51. And we struggled with that. And this is a happy way to do it. Because you have the opportunity for a straight shot from Center Street to Immersion or Immersion to Center Street. The problem I have is with the southerly curb cut. And that is the one leading to all of the employee parking. I would like to see the design. I'm having trouble as I read your description, which is pretty complete. But I would like to be able to visualize what would happen if you had the employees either first enter the northern lot, go across the front of the building and park. In other words, no southern curb cut. I would also like to say you consider the possibility of all employees entering from Immersion Drive. That would require certainly signage. It would require something saying to customers, please enter on Immersion Drive and directing them that way. But it eliminates that curb cut. I'm very reluctant to keep adding curb cuts as an answer to a problem between the building design and the lot spacing and design. I also think that you've got a little bit of a problem when you say there's a potential for a third tenant and you include an entrance, a possible entrance for a third tenant. But that would not be a particularly good entrance without considerable change. In other words, you got, I think it looks like one door, one small door there with no windows connecting it. And I think if you are going to consider having a potential for a third tenant, you're going to have to do some work right there. As much as it's nice as that big tree looked like in that space, I think you also have, and you're going to, you've probably have heard me saying this before, you have space for placemaking for employees in that area, a place for the employees to gather, because otherwise so much of this lot is taken up with the driveways and the parking. That is an opportunity, and it certainly can be shaded. You also have the handicap parking spaces there. If you have a third tenant in that area. As I said, if you have aspirations, or if the developer has aspirations to have a third tenant, now is the time to make it easier for people to get in and to find that third tenant. I would like to see again, the fenestration. I'm comfortable to an extent with the proposed landscaping on that blank end facing Immersion Drive, but I would really need to see it. You've responded to a great deal of the requests and the observations of the staff. And as you know, we had a couple of people on who had difficulty seeing the pointer pointing to the board. I would suggest when you return to us, that you try to put all of that onto the computer. Certainly, it's helpful and it's nice to see, it's visual, but we are now at the point where we are probably going to continue to have hybrid sessions, and folks do need to see what you've got there. I think that's about all I have. Your additional comments beyond what you had submitted were very helpful and in a positive direction. But I go back to what I said at the very beginning. When you have a lot and a building with buildings on all sides of it, you're going to have to make some tough choices in terms of how it's oriented or how it's laid out or the amount of space that there is. So it's not an easy job, but I have full confidence in you.
Madam Chair, if I could just comment on a couple of items that you raised tonight.
Certainly.
Your thoughts and comments about elimination of the southerly point of access for passenger vehicles to the site. If this were a single tenant building, I could understand that thought process, that you wouldn't necessarily have to have the ability to have access to either end of the site. Where this is a 2-tenant building, I think the architect has done a really nice job of taking a single building and really giving it 2 clear identities. If you go to that building, you know where you need to go. You know which end of the building is where you're going to be there. They're identified very distinctly. If we had a single tenant building, then I could understand perhaps consolidation, because if you get into the site, you're going to find the entrance. You're going to be able to do that. The benefit of having the layout as we had it with the 2 tenants, with the ability to have access to either of those locations, I think really provides a better approach for wayfinding within the site itself. To your comment about a 3rd tenant, I fully agree that if there were a 3rd tenant that were in the middle of the building, there would need to be architecturally changes that were made to really make that 3rd location a viable point of access and a clear point of access for people who would be coming to that site. So I just wanted to kind of point out a couple of those things with regard to that. And I certainly understand your comments about trying to look at buffering along the perimeter, things like that, and we can work with Keith and staff in order to address that. But I do feel strongly that the 2-tenant building and the way the building is designed really speak to having the point of access on either end of that building so that parking can be shared amongst the tenants in that location. And as I said, I do agree that if there were a 3rd tenant, then there would have to be architecturally planned changes that would be made. There would have to be changes that would be made right at that corner location. The applicant doesn't have a tenant or tenants at this point. So we'd like to have the flexibility to be able to, if there was a desire for 3 tenants to go in, that he could work to make that happen. But obviously, you know, we would understand we'd have to deal with the staff and the board in order to do that.
All right. Excuse me. You do have, of course, the second exit or entrance for the staff off of Immersion Drive for the back building. Let's call it the building off of Immersion Drive. So the only real issue that you're facing is most of the staff, I guess most of the parking lot on the south side. It's not clear whether it be for the front building off of Center or for the back building, a back tenant off of Immersion, but you have the ability for the staff to get to the back building by way of Immersion Drive, and also the ability for the staff to get to the front building off of Immersion Drive. I agree that there may be some problems in wayfaring, but I would like to see what you can come up with that eliminates the southern curb cut.
My concern is that the folks who would be coming to the building that has its frontage along Center Street would be inclined to go through the truck area to get to the parking. That would introduce a problem that we are trying to avoid.
Well, if the driveway is in front of the building, so that they turn immediately to the right with a direction sign that says client parking or customer parking to the right, in other words, crossing in front of the building.
And then you put the parking in front of the building between Center Street. and
Well,
the
you
building.
put the parking still where it is. You're going to have to make some adjustments on the parking.
Yeah, I understand. I
Mhm.
understand when your point. We would lose parking on either end. In order to recoup that parking, we would have to park in front of the building in that green space in order to make up that.
Well, let's see what it looks like. That is all I have. Are there additional comments?
Can I go, Madam Chair?
You may.
I'm glad I'm last because my comfort level got better after hearing from a traffic specialist. Thanks, Jennifer, for putting me at ease on that back or on the northern access points coming between Immersion Drive and Center Street. So I'm getting comfortable with that. I guess this goes back to what Russell brought up earlier. It's hard for me to picture how this is fitting into the puzzle on the grid. And really, as we keep moving forward and things are going so fast that I'm starting to lose perspective of where our curb cuts are and how they're interacting with the other lots. So I guess my plea out there to the developer and the folks he's working with is to somehow get us that picture or those images so that we can visualize some of this a little easier. And maybe a suggestion might be to use that opportunity to record the scorecards with that so that we could have a visual representation when we're seeing these projects come up and you say you're using X number. Okay, I can see where that fits into the puzzle. So I guess that's my ask. I like this project. Want to confirm a couple of things. Are the roofs slanted and are going to remain clear, or are there rooftop units or anything going on that for any of the HVAC systems? What's the profile going to look like? Because they slant two different ways.
That's correct. They do. With regard to the mechanical systems, I don't have the direct answer on that. I would anticipate that things would be under the roof lines, but I can certainly check with the architect to determine that. But they do, if you've looked at the model elevations, you can see which way the roofs pitch.
I
for
saw that.
Sam's coming behind me, so I think he's got an answer. Nothing on the roof, he says. That's the official answer.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate that. I just wanted to see because it's a visual thing too, as you're driving down the Center Street and the buildings I think are looking really sharp. And I want to keep that profile germane with the other.
If there's one thing that I can try to do to help you alleviate a little bit of the concern about the points of access and driveways.
And Nancy, could you please make sure you're using the mic so anybody online can hear you?
Can you hear me now? So this plan actually shows all of the either physically existing, under construction, or approved curb cuts surrounding the entire site. So let's go around here. This is the curb cut, the entrance to the Score Builders site. Score Builders is on the corner of Center Street and Innovation Way. So Innovation Way is up here. This is a vacant, undeveloped lot. So there's no curb cuts on it proposed or anything at this point. This is Immersion Drive. You folks are familiar with Immersion Drive. You did two projects on the end of Immersion Drive. This is Zoom Drain. So this is the existing curb cut, the Zoom Drain into which we're tying, and it loops around the building and comes out at the other end. Off the page here, this is the curb cut location. for the loading area for the Mainly Tubbs site or Euphoria LLC. And this is their northern curb cut on the lot. There's no development on this lot, it's vacant, so there's no curb cuts here. We have aligned directly with that. As I mentioned in the presentation, on the east side of Center Street, there's a project that was recently approved up near the corner of Center and Innovation Way. The access to that site is actually off Innovation Way, and there are no proposed curb cuts approved or proposed associated with that lot. There's a wetland in this area here, so there's not going to be any curb cuts that are proposed on that side. The location right here is the northerly curb cut for the site you folks reviewed, I think it was earlier this year for lot 51. So that's the northerly curb cut location for that site. This is the Dukas Construction Building in this location here, and their curb cut is down here on the opposite end of their building, on the southern end of their site.
I appreciate that walkthrough, but it's still hard for me to picture. You know, you can make these things up with a little model and, you know, here's a curb cut, here's a curb cut. I'm a visual guy. I got to see that just so I know, you know, and as Madam Chair mentioned, what we make a decision on is not a precedent. And we don't have to repeat, you know, pass-throughs between major throughways and roads. But it's just, I want to make sure that the pieces are falling into this so that we have a dynamite innovation district that really is slick and is, you know, it's that work, play, and live in this area. And it just I just want to make sure it's attractive. And so that's not really a plea on this project itself, but more of a general ask. And maybe it's more directed towards staff because it will really help as we start doing these infills. It gets really confusing. I'm okay with the waivers, but you know, you've heard me say it before. If you're going to shorten the width from 25 to 24, you're saving some money that could be used for EV infrastructure, and would hope that maybe we could get some of that. There's a lot of parking spots here. I love the fact that we have bicycle racks. We always get bicycle racks, but we don't get EV chargers. And that's kind of, you know, on a rainy day, you're not going to ride your bicycle. You're going to drive your electric vehicle to work. So please consider that as part of my condition of the waivers. And with that, I'm done, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I would also point out the site plan review ordinance, which says it has a clause that says, except when an additional entrance exit must be provided to prevent traffic hazards or congestion. And one of the things that I'm looking at, and thank you, Rick, for reminding me of this, lot 51, that northern exit is the exit that is taken by all of the semi trucks. And they are pulling out pretty close to the southerly curb cut for the for this building for 48. So we would need to, if we end up approving it, we would need to have the comfort level that that is not going to create a hazardous condition.
Actually did look at that as part of our evaluation of alternatives, whether to consolidate and, you know, how we could make that work. The fact that we have a entrance that's primarily focused on passenger vehicles at that location, which is closest to that truck location, in my mind, was a better alternative than to put truck traffic in proximity to that other entrance with truck traffic. So that was sort of my thought process in taking a look at that. I was aware of the fact that that is delegated for truck traffic on that northerly entrance on lot 51. To me, there isn't the likelihood that there's going to be any cross traffic between the two properties. And certainly separating the truck traffic more by putting our truck entrance on the northerly end of the site, in my opinion, was a benefit.
And in my opinion, is a benefit as well, but that doesn't address the question of whether that southerly curb cut should remain. Thank you. Any other comments from the board? We will see you back here.
Thank
Thank
very
you.
much.
We are going to take a 5-minute break. So 5 minutes from whatever time you're about 10. I've folks coming back, or is this the crowd that's left? Okay,
Behave yourself.
we have no attendees left.
Pressure's on, Drew.
Okay. We have, let's see, Roger, are you back? And Jen? All right, then I declare that we are back in session. We have before us an application from Crossroads Holdings LLC, requests a subdivision amendment review, the Fourth Amendment, for the Town Center Residential Subdivision at the Downs, Assessors Map R52, Lot 4. Jamil?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the applicant's proposing to create 20 new single-family lots, 3 multifamily lots, and extend Pacer Way, Hackamore Avenue, and Front Runner Way within the project. The proposal also includes a utility and pedestrian connection to Sawgrass Drive to the east of the development, along with a pedestrian connection to the existing Gristmill neighborhood within phase 1 of the Downs as well. So staff did note that there appear to be some opportunities to include some placemaking or pedestrian plaza areas adjacent to the proposed pedestrian connection to Sawgrass Drive, along with close or near to the 4-way intersection of Hackamore Avenue and Front Runner Way. The applicant's also proposing a new gravel pedestrian trail adjacent to gravel wetland 4 that will connect to the existing Gristmill neighborhood. And staff has recommended that the applicant include a plan sheet that includes the full connection along with associated details with future submissions. And I think at this point, Angela is going to discuss some details related to roadway design.
I'm not quite sure where to look. But I guess I just wanted to say a couple of things. With the last time the applicant was in front of the board, I know with the third amendment, there was a conversation with the board about the askewed angle of the intersection at Front Runner and Hackamore. And the issues that might pose with future, where these are going to be public streets with future maintenance and access for police, fire, public works, had some concerns with that. And what we talked about was really looking at it and waiting for this Fourth Amendment, knowing it was coming immediately after, to really step back and look at it. Where is this road actually going and how that connects? So now we're seeing that. And with that, we're also seeing a couple other waiver requests from our roadway standards. And so I guess I would ask that there'd be some more conversations with Public Works, Police, Fire, when we start talking about roadway standards and not meeting the minimums of those. And I know since that conversation with the planning board, I did have the chance to discuss it with Drew, who's here tonight. And we talked about really the goals of probably the design from the applicant's point of view. And also there's the necessity for this being our street, this town street in the future, and making sure we can come up with a design that works for both parties, all parties, really. It becomes the residents, right, of the town of Scarborough. And then making sure that we can accommodate really how we plow, how we access through it, all of that. And I know Drew did a great job coming up with an alternative design to that. However, it was not in the packet that you're seeing. So what you're gonna see is the last rendition, right? And I'm sure he's here, we'll kind of walk through that. But I guess I just wanted to point that out as there's an example there of, I think, in that light of working with the applicant of knowing here's where we're trying to get to. If there's some sort of goal in mind, and then working with how we look at our future maintenance operation, all of that, I think we can come up with some alternative designs that meet both of those. And with that, the instance on the other one is about really getting tighter curves in the roadways. And I know in the last one, we did something slightly different in phase 1 to try, and we modified other pieces of it. You know, it was a work in progress. We kind of gave here and took here, and we kind of came up with this alternative design. I think trying to figure out how it would work for everybody. And I know, I just wanted to also just point out I know at the last meeting, there was a reference made to other streets in town that have similar designs with some of these things that we're talking about. And I think we've said this a few times to the board, there's some lessons learned in those. And we don't want to repeat some of those lessons that we've learned. We should learn from them and move forward. And so with that said, I just want to make sure that we are moving forward in those and looking at it and really taking into account staff's comments, department head comments, when we start having conversations with the planning board about some of these waivers and the waiver requests. Because I think we can get there. We just need to have a more open conversation and looking for more of those alternative designs to really consider that. And I just wanted to point out that, and I don't want to throw any department under the bus. And I know I keep talking about public works and operations because they are the ones out in the field in the middle of the night and plowing snow and stuff like that. I will say that we have a public works director that is willing to try new things, and we have tried new things. And in some cases where I'm saying we have some success, we've also seen some failures. And I'm saying with some of those pieces, I'm not only hearing from the departments, say police, fire, or public works. I'm also starting to hear from residents in some of these neighborhoods that are saying, what was the thought process with the planning board? Why did you design it this way? Why did you let them implement it this way? And I'm not talking about the Downs at all. I'm just talking in general in other locations in town. So when we start hearing that from the residents that live it every day too, that needs to be thought of, and how do we want to repeat these things? So I guess that's my undertone, is just looking at having the conversation. That's all. So sorry I went on a little long there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think personally, I think everybody gains when we have conversations before things get cast in concrete. Because when they get cast in concrete, all of a sudden we have positions instead of opportunities and a willingness to work together. I do think that certainly it's very helpful for me to understand the thought processes and behind something. Frequently, that understanding occurs in the workshops that we have, because we have that sort of opportunity to see where somebody is going and to see how a decision was arrived at, that we would do it this way. I offer the developer an opportunity here as well to, if we need to have a discussion around how you got someplace. Where are you going with that? What don't we see that you see? And that would be very helpful, especially at the beginning stages, before things get, before these sheets of paper become monumental and folks start to say, well, this is what it's got to be. So the sooner we can have those sorts of conversation, I'm glad the staff is having that, and that the other departments are having that. So saying that, welcome, Drew, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Drew Gagnon with Goral Palmer. Representing Crossroad Holdings LLC. I'm going to get into all the town comments and main elements for discussions here in just a second, but I'm just going to walk through what we're presenting here tonight and what our application is part of. So this is an overall concept plan, we call it, of the whole Downs development, and we shared this 3 weeks ago, I believe, with the third amended subdivision application. I think it just helps bring some context a little bit to where we are on the Downs. This is kind of a hybrid between what's already out there, what was planned, some of it's old, and some of the future that I guess, we're kind of thinking about a little bit as we plan forward, but obviously things change, daily. So this is nothing set in stone one bit, but it's just certainly something that kind of keep showing and keep sharing so that, we can keep that openness between the Downs team and, the public here. So what we're talking about today is, if you can see my hand, is this area right here. This is going to be the 4th amended town center residential subdivision. And essentially it's taking everything from what we've got approved and planned and concurrent review to date, all the way to the eastern property line. So this is a blow up of that same plan, and highlighted in red is essentially the limits of the subdivision. This line work right on here is a little old, as it's again, it's more conceptual. It's not exactly AutoCAD drawings, but it shows basically the lots, the configuration, and kind of the surrounding network here. This is American House at the Downs, which will be in front of you guys in a couple weeks here. This is the townhouses at Front Runner Park that was approved back in March, I believe, or end of February. And this is Pacer Way, the extensions. So that's kind of where we are in proximity. We'll flip everyone 90 degrees once again here. So these are our engineering drawings. Everything within this bold dashed line is the 4th amended subdivision. So real briefly, and Jamel did a good job of going over it, 23 lots are proposed in this amendment. 3 are multifamily and 20 single family lots are proposed. The single family lots are really huddled around the Pacer Way extension. And these are intended to be street garage loaded lots. So no longer with the alleys. They're more traditional single family with the garages facing the street. And the multifamily lots are accessed off Pacer, Hackamore, and what we're calling the future Front Runner extension up here. I'm also going to get into the phasing, and it's more of a construction phasing and sequencing, but I thought it'd be good to let the board know and the town of kind of our plan for construction, how it relates to growth permits and just the infrastructure getting there. So I'll get into that in just a little bit here. So again, the roadways proposed in this amendment are Hackamore Ave being brought all the way to the east, Pacer Way being brought up to the north and east to create a new intersection up there. And then Front Runner Ave being extended about 400 feet or so to the edge of lot 34. And what that does is that's going to create another lot, what we're calling 42 right here. So pedestrian connections, we are connecting into Sawgrass Drive with pedestrians and utilities. So you can see, and it's a little small in this plan here, but we have a 6 or 8 foot sidewalk connecting over to the Sawgrass Drive sidewalk, which is on the northern side. And sidewalks proposed on both sides along Hackamore Ave and one side along Pacer. This is a colored utility plan. It kind of goes over really just the main infrastructure that's going in. So the dashed lines are what's existing or planned or in concurrent review, since we're moving along here quickly. And the bold lines are what we're proposing in this phase. So you can see we're proposing an 8-inch water main looped within the roadway infrastructure. And then just an extension of the 8-inch up Front Runner. This is really just to kind of serve the entire site and serve all the different lots. Gravity sewer is proposed for one lot here on the south that's going to collect just a single family home lot. And really this is all grade dependent why that gravity stub is right there. There's 2 private gravity stubs in the townhouses at Front Runner Park development that was recently approved, and we're getting right towards construction right now. The multifamily sites are proposed to hook up to those stubs. And we're working with the sanitary district on the exact connections of that and where all the flows are going. In addition, we have a red line here that is representing a 2-inch force main for 19 single family home lots. We're connecting into the Sawgrass Drive force main. So the Sawgrass Drive force main was oversized initially for additional future development, which kind of really works out well in this instance here. We were working with the sanitary district, and he actually recommended that we look into hooking up into that. We did a whole zoning analysis with low pressure force mains and everything working great with the sizes proposed and connecting into that force main. So we're looking forward to providing low pressure sewer system for those 19 single family home lots. In addition, lot 42 right here is going to receive or propose to receive gravity sewer connection through a main. This green dashed line right here is a cross-country sewer main that's going to cut through lot 34. And we're working with the sanitary district on what that exact looks like. It will be a publicly owned main, and we're essentially just extending it south down the future Front Runner Road here, just to serve lot 42 to get that utilities in there. So in addition to this, underground electric looping through the entire site here, and as well as gas being looped through the entire site. This is a quick stormwater management plan overview. So the green area is what is going to existing gravel wetland 1, and that is where my hand is right here. This is just about complete and under construction, just a couple of things left to tidy it up there, but most of the infrastructure is in for that stormwater facility. And you can see the green, so portions of lot 41, 42, and a portion of the roadways are going to this gravel wetland. This was all allocated when we built the gravel wetland. We had a acre and a half or so of development that was allocated to this. So this isn't any overage or anything like that. This is something that was allocated as future development, and we knew that would be expanding in this direction. Yellow is untreated stormwater from our DEP permit. So portion of it here is going off into the inner racetrack, which has collected and distributed over to Millbrook eventually. And then this yellow down here, so a portion of lot 40, as well as some of the single family homes, is getting collected and distributed through a pipe to help keep that wetland south of all this a little bit wet here. The blue portion is the large watershed that's going to the new proposed gravel wetland right here. This will be our 4th gravel wetland proposed on the site right now. And we're treating it the same as the first gravel wetland with the stormwater bypass system. So depending on the time of the year, we'll have salt concentrated water either directly bypassing the gravel wetland into the stream or vice versa. This is all pending DEP review. We did get our stormwater comments basically finalized today, so it's just the rest of the application. So that is trending in a good direction there. So this entire blue area here does outlet to Millbrook. Outlets to a swale in the wetland down here in the open space of phase 1, and that gets distributed eventually over to Millbrook. This is the phasing of, and I'll call it construction phasing and sequencing of our application. So I tried to block out in white here what our projected construction schedule is. So basically the first installment will be stormwater facilities and Hackamore Ave and Pacer Way kind of up to where they stop on this plan right here. That's essentially to get the infrastructure, utilities, stormwater, drainage in for lots 40 and 41, which are really what we're going for basically right after this amendment is what we're going to be coming in for approval for. Those will help get our access drives in there and provide interconnection through those 2 sites as well. Phase 2 is looking at basically, I think, 17 or 18 single family homes along Pacer and that connection up to Hackamore Ave. So we're committed to providing that interconnected loop network there, and really comes down to growth permits and timing. We're looking at those single family home lots directly after it and continuing that main up there. The utilities being separated in that direction from a sewer perspective helps as well. So it kind of works out in a bunch of different reasons to kind of construction phase this project here and this amendment. And the third phase here is the extension of Front Runner. I mentioned is about 400 feet. And it helps create lot 42 and it eventually will provide access into lot 42 with utilities and infrastructure. I do want to mention we are proposing a 10-foot wide multi-purpose path along the western side of Front Runner, and that is going with lot 34. So back to our sketch plan we did with that a few weeks ago. It's all in conjunction with this roadway, but that multi-purpose path is going to go with lot 34, but it'll be essentially within the right of way of this future Front Runner. So I want to get into the key updates and comments that we discussed, and we briefly had a little bit of a discussion before the presentation there. I want to provide a Hackamore Ave and Front Runner Way updates based on what Angela said. So this is what the new intersection will look like. And I coordinated this with Angela and we seem to be on the same page with that. I apologize, this wasn't in your package before. It came down the timing when we were discussing it at the planning board 3 weeks ago. This was being submitted. But in updated plan sets, this will be the orientation of the intersection. So based on public works concerns and town staff, we have aligned the curbs there and created a more true 90-degree 4-way intersection with the bend after it. We were able to make it work out and still providing enough green space here, we think, for the lot programming there. I'm going to flip back here and keep going down the slides. So the radii waivers along Pacerway that we initially proposed. This is the location of it. And let me just flip up here so I can give you some context. We're talking about the two curves right down here and over here along Pacerway. And this is the initial plan over profile provided to you guys. And per what the application said, we had 75-foot radii and 86-foot radii proposed for this roadway. The town standard for this designated road is 100 feet. So initially we're providing less than the standard in order to provide quicker turns and really try to slow down the traffic and maximize the developable land around it. So in phase one, we provided 75-foot radii down in Mill Commons, and it was our understanding that Public Works was accepting of that. And we didn't mean to think that that was for every road going forward. We just thought this was a good place for it, where there's back-to-back reverse curves. We could provide a long tangent in between with a shorter, smaller radii. But based on town comment and based on the discussions we've had, we think we can make it work with 100-foot radii to meet the town standard and don't need to request a waiver. We want to maximize the right-of-way length on either side. So we think we can do this without changing the right-of-way, and that'll get the development team exactly what they need. And I think we can achieve what the town's looking for meeting the minimum standard of the radius. So we will also be revising these to 100 feet. When you look at it on a plan, it's really not a whole lot. It probably shifts the road about 5 feet down in this and over here and another 5 feet up in this situation. So it really doesn't look like a whole lot, but it will help definitely with the turning movements of plow trucks, fire trucks and everything like that. So we're happy to revise that to 100 feet after looking at it a little bit closer. And the trail connection to Gristmill subdivision, this is a plan that we had put together kind of when we were looking at the second amended phase one subdivision plan. So we're happy to provide a plan similar to this, extend the view a little bit down in our plan set. But I did want to show where the trail is proposed to go. So this area is just south of where the proposed fourth amended is. It's right off the page up here. This is that large wetland I mentioned. Tandem courts over here on the left. This is Gristmill subdivision. And as part of that approval 3 years ago now, we had a 20-foot access easement right along the side here, and that connected to the trails provided in phase one of Gristmill Lane subdivision. So this is a easement for a long outlet pipe for the gravel wetland. We have to run it really long to get to the grade so that everything could sit, not 8 feet high on site. So we had to get down to a low point down here and run about 400 feet of pipe down back to the gravel wetland. So we need to provide a maintenance path for that in order to at any point get back into the pipe or have give the town the rights to get down there to the plunge pool down here. So as part of that 10-foot wide gravel maintenance path, we wanted to incorporate the trail with that will lead right up into Pacer Way. So with that, we provide a boardwalk crossing this wetland section. And then this is the 4-foot wide proposed trail that wants to connect to the Gristmill Lane subdivision trail down here. So this area right here is the 100-foot buffer to the property line. And this line right here is where the open space ends. So we're within the open space of phase one. And I do want to mention that this trail and has been coordinated with the DEP and was in the level 2 application as well. We're not really bringing in any material for it. It's supposed to be a winding trail, and we're going to pick the exact location in the field. So we don't want to just draw a straight line down it and knock over a 2-foot diameter oak just to put a 4-foot wide trail. And so we want it to wind through the natural vegetation with some really minor trimming on either side in order to kind of create a nice walking environment and trail environment to really interconnect the different phases here. So, so that's not the exact alignment, and there will be notes on that will dictate that, someone from our team or the developer needs to be out there to pick this. And we're not bringing in any gravel for it. We want to use the original forest duff that's there and maybe move the existing grade a little bit if we want to make it a little flatter, make it a little bit nicer to walk on it. But we're not going to bring in any gravel or anything like that. And that's in our permit we've committed to this in our DEP permit. So that's how we have to follow it. So it's very similar to the other trail that was provided over here in the first town center residential application. Essentially the same thing, just on this side. A couple more things, placemaking. We noticed a couple comments in there regarding the placemaking surrounding Front Runner and Hackamore intersection, as well as the new Sawgrass connection. We're happy to do that. We've been working on it. We're still deciding exactly what that's going to look like, but we are committed to providing some sort of placemaking in those places. I do also want to mention that in the first phase, the gravel wetland stormwater facility, as well as the wetland park is what we're calling it, really provided a kind of a central placemaking for the entire site. And we're still adjacent to that with this application. So we still want to utilize some of that and utilize some of the passive recreation space surrounding that as well. So we're still looking into that, but we're in agreement that we want to put something there as well. And then in addition to that, each multifamily site that comes in has additional placemaking within it that has rights given. So just all that together, we feel like we're getting somewhere with the placemaking aspect of this application. But like I said, we are in agreement to provide some additional items near those two areas. The main DEP level 2 is on schedule. We're expecting it in July. That really grants the rights from the state level anyway, for us to get into this part of the land. So as I mentioned before, the stormwater review has been completed and it's really waiting on everything else. So we're real close with it. We want to get in front of the board this time to discuss through any other comments that we have. We're happy to do a consent item if everyone's in agreement, and we'll provide an updated plan set addressing all the comments. We feel that the rest of the remaining comments are very fair, and we can work with the town traffic reviewer, as well as Woodard and Curran, the peer reviewer, any other remaining comments. But as far as the main elements and considerations, I feel like we've talked through them all right here, and we're happy to discuss them anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. This is an item that is subject to public comment. Are there any members of the public? No. All right. Any members of the audience? You're good, Rocky. Okay. Thank you. Then we will go to observations and comments from the board. I'm going to throw this open. If you want to start, raise your hand. Roger? Roger, you muted.
This is not working. Can I assume that the intersection of Hackamore and Pacer, as well as those two curves with the radii, that's basically, for all intents and purposes, been resolved with the staff? And it doesn't require any further discussion on our part?
How it was just described to Drew, from Drew. I would say yes, it sounds like it's addressing my concerns. I just haven't seen it on a plan. So yes, other than I did see the intersection plan. We talked about that and walked through it. But I believe them, I guess. I don't know what you want me to say to that, but it sounds like that it's being addressed. And I really do appreciate it, because on the face of the earth, I would say from a layperson driving a road, you're going to notice something's different, but you're not going to know, oh, this must be 75 foot and not 100. Like, I totally appreciate that it's not that big of a deal. I guess my only point being is I don't hear from dense development that hits 100 feet. Like, that's not a comment I get. However, on the 75-foot ones, yes, I get feedback from the residents. So I really do appreciate, I understand it's a big lift for you guys too, to realign the roadway. So I really do appreciate you guys looking at that and finding a way to make it work. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I do know that it's a lift. So thank you.
Okay. Drew, at the last time you were before us, one of the reasons for the slight deviation on that intersection in Hackamore was, I believe you indicated that you wanted to do some sort of placemaking right there where it says about 41. Is that still your intentions?
Yeah, it is. And really, when we looked at it a little harder and Angela and I walked through it, we were able to figure out, okay, if we just put a short curve right after where the stop bar is, essentially, we can kind of achieve what we're both looking for. So, I appreciate Angela working with us on that. And to answer your question, yes, we still are looking at some good green passive open recreational space there that it'll be in front of the board here very shortly. So.
Okay. And the last question I have is, I'm kind of curious, under utilities in the staff comments, maybe Jamal could, or Angela could explain the 5-year moratorium with Sawgrass Drive.
Yep, I can jump in. It was just noting it. That's a brand new road, that there's a process, that's all. Not that it should hold up this, but it is a 5-year moratorium on new paved streets. So it would have to be something that you'd need, Public Works Director would need to authorize. And so I just put it out there because it's not just typically like you're digging for a water line, you're gonna dig a 5-foot swath and repave it. When you're in a moratorium street, you're paving the whole width of the road, right? So you don't end up with this patchwork or quilt into a brand new street where drainage can get into the gravel and make a mess of a brand new road. So I will say on the plan set, they're already accommodating that. They're already seeing that coming. I just want to point it out and put it in and document it so that we make sure we preserve that.
Well, just kind of curious, when the people were buying into the Sawgrass development, were they aware that there was that this provision was part of this overall development? Do you know that?
Well, that street has always gone to the property line. There's no gap. So I don't know what they were told when they were buying their homes. Only that would be Joe Frustacci who sold those. But I guess it was always shown up to the property line that you could develop the next property. I will say the ordinance says you can't traverse with motor vehicles through there. So I would hope that if you're buying a lot in there, you would know what you're buying, but I can't answer your question, I guess.
Okay. I guess if the village gets developed the way I think they hope it does, I suspect the people who live over there in the Sawgrass development anyways would be more than happy to be able to just get on a bike or walk over there and be able to take advantage of that. So.
That neighborhood would have been notified of this process, correct?
Within 500 feet of, so most, or if not all.
Okay, I guess I'm all set. My experience with all these different developments from the Downs is that I think they're doing a great job, and that they seem to be very cooperative with our request and the staff's request. So I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. Russell?
Drew, thank you for working with the staff on the alignment of that intersection. That was a sticky point when you were before us earlier. I'm curious, what's the horizontal tangent piece there? The length of that?
On Pacer or the one near Hackamore and Front Runner?
I'm sorry, Hackamore, yeah.
The tangent from where you leave, I guess, east of Front Runner to where the second tangent is a few hundred feet. I believe. I don't have the exact number here with me, but it should be a few hundred feet from it's a very short curve coming right off the intersection.
Right.
And then we go a couple hundred feet, and then there's that second curve that kind of comes back down to a line with that utility window on Sawgrass.
And while it's, not a big deal on paper necessarily to have 100-foot radius curve or those 200-foot radius curves that we talked about, it's important to try to adhere to the standard and not have to request waivers where you can. So again, I appreciate you working with the staff to achieve that. I think you said it, you're moving it horizontally 4, 5, 6 feet, something like that, and you can still attain what you're looking for. So once again, I appreciate that. I would love once again, I think I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but I would love to get a copy of, what was the term you used, the overall concept plan in a big format that's updated as you update things. It would be helpful to me, and I think the rest of the board, to be able to see that. So we can go back to Rick's point earlier, we can kind of piece all this stuff together visually in our minds. Every time I drive out to the Downs, I'm trying to figure out what's what. I wasn't around here when this all came together, and each time I go out there, I learn a little bit more, and each meeting I'm learning a little bit more, but I'm still playing catch up. Madam Chairman, I don't really have a lot to add to this particular application tonight. So I'm all set for now.
Thank you. Jen?
Thank you. I'll actually elaborate a little bit on something that Russell just brought up, and that is also was one of the staff comments, maybe a combination of the two. So Russell's asking again for progress, graphics, I guess, that help us identify which pieces of the overall Downs have been built out, maybe even which pieces are in front of us now and which we've yet to see, which I also agree would be very helpful. And however, having worked sometimes on projects similar, I get it, we get it, we totally understand that those are your best guess at this point, and that you have a lot of moving parts. And so if there's hesitancy about putting something on a paper, on a graphic, because it might be interpreted as a sure thing, I at least can look at that, with the understanding that you have some other things in the works. A little bit more specifically, you've come before us before, perhaps not for a while, but with some really good graphics, in my opinion, that help us understand what your vision is for this overall development, and then piece by piece, the trails that you are looking at, the sidewalks that you're looking at, any of those sort of active amenities that I really think are such an advantage here. I know that you're spending a lot of time and effort on those, and thinking about connectivity and where all of those things lie, and things like what Drew was just talking about, taking advantage of needing an access road for utility maintenance, but topping that with a 10-foot wide multi-use trail. By and large, anyone that uses that is going to recognize it as multi-use trail, not, they're walking on top of your drainage pipe. But one thing, I actually took a trip through a part of the Downs over the weekend, and so it's interesting that this has kind of come up a little bit tonight. But as I did that, I remember thinking, oh, I think when this gets built out over here, there'll be a trail and a trail crossing here, and then further down, similarly. So, as you continue to advance your graphics, and at the risk of asking you to submit a whole bunch more material than you already are, which is a lot, but typically very helpful. I think it would be helpful as you start building these things out for us to be able to see that, and not just us, but if I was a member of the public, particularly a resident of any part of this development, I probably know that you're building some of these trails, but I might not know. I might not know if it's connected to anything, or I might not know that it's under construction for utility use, things like that. So that's just something that I think would be helpful to see. So sort of a subset of that comment to help us keep an eye over what else you have going on. Again, more specifically, a comment on the trail connection. Drew, you showed a graphic that identified the 4-foot trail connection between the 10-foot multi-use path that will come down over that drainage pipe and connect to an existing trail network in the Gristmill neighborhood. And I was just wondering what the existing width of that what the width of the existing trail is in the neighborhood that's already there. And why not connect the two at the same width?
I think the existing phase one is 5 feet.
5
and
feet,
I-
okay.
Yeah, and I would say the difference there that we're proposing with the trail that connects the two phases is that's actually a graded and a gravel trail, and I think portions of it are actually paved. This trail that we're connecting between the phases wants to feel a little more intimate with it being in the woods and it's snaking around large trees and other natural resources. We felt 4 feet was wide enough to accommodate kind of the use of what we were planning in that, rather than have it as a long open path that has like a gravel and a hard surface. So that's the main difference between it.
Okay, thanks. I think I had, I thought initially you had talked about a width wider than that, but so that does make a little bit more sense. However, 4 feet is pretty narrow for a trail connection, although I do understand and appreciate the natural context that you're talking about for that. But, particularly in winter, that's probably going to end up as, just a single foot trail. And I am just so hopeful for you and anyone else that's living in these neighborhoods that these trails are so popular that is insufficient. But I mean that in like the nicest way possible. So anyway, just, I guess I would certainly not at the risk of mature vegetation that's out there, understanding you're being pretty selective about where that actual route is going to lie. But I just think, not necessarily any width, but any, additional width beyond that, maybe that you could get closer to the 5 feet would be great and able to, keep some consistency there. Lastly, just not lastly, 2 more points. One, I just wanted to confirm that on lots 40, 41, and 42, which are the larger 3 that you're showing in this submission, those are intended to be multifamily lots, is that right? So residential and multifamily?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So my biggest takeaway when reviewing all of this information was that this is, again, entirely, unless I am missing something, full-fledged residential proposal here. And, I feel like we've kind of seen that a lot of these, the amendments or these groups of submissions that you've made, with the exception of, I think, one commercial office space that we had seen at a ground floor level. I'm just, every time you have an item on the agenda, I'm looking for, where is the multi-use development? Where can we, hoping to see some more ground floor office space, ground floor retail, commercial, and I know that you are working, on a larger scale. I understand that you're working towards that, and that this is intended to be the dense residential part of this development. However, I think that with all the effort and cost, I'm sure, that you are putting into putting sidewalks on both sides of these, some of these streets, making path connections to adjacent neighborhoods and trails through the woods, without, there's got to be a limit on how far people are going to walk for just enjoyment. And so, unless you're a runner, a long distance runner or something like that, having a destination, a place to go to, a coffee shop, a bookstore, sprinkled in here or there. So I'm not talking about dense commercial development in the middle of a bunch of single family homes. But I am looking for, hoping that you are working, if not on this submission, then perhaps on the next one, for that, so that it's not a hard line. So we're not seeing a hard line between, residential development and then, oh, we flipped over the line and now we're into the commercial area. So some transition on a small scale that feels inherent and is attractive to people that are living here, as just, you know, places that they may need or want to go about as part of their daily life. So a little long-winded on that, I'm sorry, but I think you just have so much opportunity here, and I look forward to seeing that in all your other developments that you have coming forward.
Thank you, Jen. Let us go to Rick immediately on my left.
You know, actually, between Jen and Roger, most of my questions have already been answered. So rather than to ask the same questions again, I think I'll pass the baton over to.
Rick number 2.
All right. I just have one simple thought. Well, maybe it's not simple, but I would love to see you not have to spend the expense of putting in natural gas pipes in these residential areas. With the new code coming into play on July 1st and the air exchange standards that are going to be required in these homes, they're going to be very tight. They're going to be very well ventilated because some mechanical ventilation will be required. But the beauty is you can heat these things with different technology that doesn't go boom or doesn't create a flame. And I would encourage you, as you start to lay out the homes here, you use this opportunity with these advancements in codes to change what Maine home building has been all about. And that is putting in boilers and hydronic systems and things of that nature, and embrace the technology of heat pumps and water and air to water heat systems. You can save a lot of money on your infrastructure by going a little bit more carbon neutral. I say this because we may have a comprehensive plan that reinforces some of the principles of Maine Won't Wait and the climate action plans that have been developed and some of the recent legislation that's been passed. And I think as this down matures and we work together as a community, as a planning board and with staff, we can come up with solutions that help solve a problem and not continue to create the problem. That's all I want to say tonight. But I also, well, I want to say one other thing. Thank you for working with staff, especially on that road. And I noticed you put a couple of light fixtures there to make sure that there was some safety involved. So I appreciate the close working that relationship that you have with the staff. It helps prepare these kind of packages. It helps us have confidence that there's been this communication and there's this level of comfort that our staff has, the planning department has with our developers. So I think that's a great thing. I'll conclude now.
Thank you, Rick. I've got a problem in that most of the things I had ticked off, you had responses to already. And I look forward to seeing them in the next submission. I do have some questions that I think would help me get ready for what would finally come in terms of much more of a site plan, and that is the houses, the single family houses. What sizes are they going to be? The garage, the ones with the garages to the street.
Well, the typical size for the garages we've seen 24 by 24, and then
so the houses would be
1,500 to 2,000 square feet, somewhere around there.
So 3 bedrooms, about, okay. The multifamily, what are you talking about? What type is there?
Very similar to the buildings that are already in phase 1. So tandem court, the gables and hayloft.
Okay, so we're
similar
going to see,
size to those. Yes.
we're going to, okay. Are you planning on any of them being available as workforce housing?
We meet the workforce housing needs, I believe, with the combined total of the entire Downs development. So we'll have to take a hard look at that and see if that we need to include that in these two applications for the coming multifamily sites. But I believe there is a surplus developed from phase one that gets carried forward. So
Let me just make an observation that even if you meet the needs of, meet the criteria, we're hearing more and more about the concern of the need for workforce housing. There was an article in the Portland Press Herald today about something going on in Cape Elizabeth, where they talk about having a fireman commuting from Buxton because there's not good affordable housing there. Now, they've got some other issues, but I think Scarborough, to a great extent, is in a similar situation. I don't have the figures. I'm sure somebody does, but to the extent that you can think about how to create some workforce housing in there, I bet they rent pretty fast. And as the town grows and we have young teachers, and policemen and fire and other town workers, it would be very helpful to know that there is a place, if they're coming from outside of Scarborough, there's a place that they can light that's really a good place. And that would be the Downs. So I would urge you to think about that. And Jen brought up something that I had also made a note of. It's kind of, I understand that the downtown is going to have a lot of commercial. That's the purpose of a downtown. But in the original discussions, there were, with the Downs folks, there was a discussion about starting to feather in some of the commercial areas. And it seems to me that you're getting to the point where you're into the area that the feathering in could start, especially in these connected with the multifamily. As you have with the hayloft, and you've got a one office on the bottom of floor of one of the buildings. This is an opportunity. I hear from folks that, well, all of it is just constant residential, residential, residential. And we can say, wait until you see, wait until you see, wait until you see the town center, wait until you see what will happen along the entrance to Hikers Parkway and into the town center. I think now is the time to really start to consider what can be done in terms of some commercial use, mixed use in these multifamily areas. I don't mean put a mall there, but I do think start to think about that and feathering in some of those uses. That is basically all I have. You just, took everything that I had ticked off. So I appreciate that. And I guess we will see at the next meeting. We will see.
Rachel?
Finished. I've got you, Rocky. We will see how you put them down, because I can hear I've got what you're saying, but I need to see it. So Rocky. Oh, okay. Roger, did you have a question?
Yes, yeah. Actually, I wanted to ask Drew and maybe Rocky a question. Not pertaining to this particular project, but the overall project. When Drew was first doing his presentation tonight, he gave us an overview of the whole project, right? And I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't think we've seen that enough. It gives us a better idea of what you guys are planning. But I was just kind of curious, does Rocky or you guys have any idea of how closely the residents in the town are following what's going on at the Downs? Do you have any way of getting any kind of feedback?
I can address that. Rocky Risborough, Crossroads Holdings. We're monitoring social media quite a lot. We're really keeping a close eye on that. We're seeing, pretty active comments on that, and we do monitor it. That's really about the only way that we know what's going on and what people are thinking. We too want to get to the downtown, and we're working with the town's downtown committee right now diligently. We think it's gonna be a good process. We're well into it. It's going to take some time to get there. I will say, I do want to comment on some of the comments tonight from the board that this area that we're talking about tonight, this residential area, really ought to be residential. And that's how it's been planned from day one. It doesn't lend itself to any kind of a mixed use. There are areas that will lend itself to truly mixed use. And we're getting there, but we're just not there yet. This piece of the project really is a big key to extending that infrastructure. Again, the Downs, when we started the Downs, we explained it, how to eat an elephant one bite at a time, and we're bringing infrastructure to the middle. And, with the American Home site, we're getting very close to that mixed use area, and that we will be able to meet those goals, but it is going to take us a little bit more time to get there. I also want to mention that on the other end of the project, that innovation district, we've been highly successful there. And I know it's not mixed use, but it's commercial use, and we've brought a lot of commercial use to the town. You saw some tonight, you'll see more coming. And we're very close to seeing the end on the innovation district. So we feel very positive about that. But we think overall, we're bringing a good project to the town. And again, one bite at a time. But this residential piece, I know it's a little painful to think about, another chunk of it, but we know that we need rooftops. That's what our end users are telling us. They want rooftops on site before anybody will consider to actually have a viable commercial downtown. But we are working on it. We have our Camoin Associates. We met with them last week. We've got another meeting with them this week. Goody Clancy is working on the project on the downtown, and I have another meeting with them tomorrow. So we are moving forward, and it is going to happen, but it is going to take us some time. Thank you.
The reason for my question, Rocky, was I suspect a lot of citizens in town are very eager to find out what's going on in that space, and without having to drive through it, especially during the week when you're working up there. So that's the only reason I asked it, because I just suspect that there's a lot of interest.
We have
Curiosity,
another drone video going to be shot coming right after this weekend. And then that'll get out there again. And that really is a good eye opener, I think, for folks to be able to see it from above, and it should help.
And does that go on your social media?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so, all right.
Rocky, would it also be available for our next meeting?
Yes, it will be. And I think Dan has floated the idea. I don't really know where we stand with it, but maybe another workshop or a site meeting with the planning board, I think, is in order. In the next, I don't know when we could schedule it in, but we do have a portion of the grandstand available to us now. The grandstand, as you all know, was the COVID vaccination clinic. Because that got done, we've got an area there that's a pretty good meeting space now. So we perhaps could have a meeting on site that we could take you through. I know that plan that Drew, I think it's in the packet, or was that just in your presentation, the overall? We can make that available. This is the second time we've shown it to you. It needs to be updated a little bit more, but I think that would be really helpful to get your heads around it. And if we could actually make full-size copies available to the planning board as well.
It's in here? It's in here?
Yeah, he's saying, no, it is not in there. We just showed it on the screen
I
tonight.
didn't think it was.
We'll get it to you.
All right, thank you. Let me suggest that we take a look at another workshop. I'm also quite aware that we're going into vacation time and folks going up to camp. We're or down to camp or wherever they're going, but so it might be a little difficult immediately arranging something, but that's, I think that would be helpful. I think a site visit to the grandstand area might also be helpful. It can't really be more than that, simply because unless we can figure out how to stream it if we hold a workshop there, so that it is available to the public, and that may be able to happen, and it might be a good place to do it, but we do need the meeting to be open and noticed to the public. Just as we would notice a site walk, but nobody would expect that a camera would be following us unless it's one of your drones. So I appreciate the offer. And for the board members, if you go to the Scarborough Town website and take a look at the committees, you can see the town center, ad hoc town center committee. When they hold a meeting, it is video streamed, and you could take a look at the last one, and there might be some good information on there, and information that's very helpful to you. So that is also available. I'd appreciate that, folks, and we will see you at our next meeting. And I'm very confident that you are well on your way here. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right, staff report.
You want to go first, Angela? Do you have anything for staff?
Only that I didn't know if we are still scheduling a workshop for the Downs about traffic. That was the only other thing. And so I just didn't want to get in the middle of too many things. So I just want to keep that in your purview as well.
Yeah.
Because that's going to have to be kind of a thing all to itself. There's a lot there to digest. So I just want to make sure it's in the conversation somewhere when we start planning out workshops. That's all I have.
We'll put it on the agenda and figure out how we're going to do it.
I can report on some pre-construction meetings.
Thank you.
We had pre-construction meeting for the Firehouse Village project at the former Public Safety Complex on Route 1. So that's got underway, and then the Lot 12 project at Innovation District is also kicked off. And then we do have a subdivision plan that needs to be signed. I see that the 3 members here signed them, but Roger, Jen, and Russell, if you could come in the next day or two and sign the plan, that'd be really helpful. That's all I have.
Administrative amendment report.
There was one this month at the Blast from the Past Diner on Route 1, just for a aluminum roof over their existing patio. That's it.
Thank you. Correspondence? Nope. Okay, that's good. Planning board comments. Comments from folks? Roger? Roger?
Yeah, just 2 things. And I don't know if Jen or Russell will agree with me, but this hybrid thing doesn't work very well. So I guess I didn't realize that we could have been in person right there at the meeting today, because I would have been there. And I'll certainly be at the next one, because you can't even see the boards when their consultants are putting them up. It's very difficult. The other thing I just wanted to mention is I thought the presentation last week, I guess it was, on the traffic movement permit was really excellent. And I thought it was very understandable, and I hope the general public has a chance to take a look at it. It's really going to be significant in the town, have a significant impact. Thank you.
Other board comments?
I understand what Roger's saying about not being able to see the board. But I think that for a while, we're gonna have to keep the hybrid model, because there's a lot of members of the public that still want to participate that don't feel comfortable coming into a building. And
Yeah, that's why I did ask Nancy to, next time, bring a computer. So that everything is available. It is hard working this way. And I think you're quite right, Rick, that there are quite a few members of the public that still would like to be able to come virtually and comment. So we're going to have to ensure that the developers make some adjustments, because as pretty as the boards are, you can't see them if you're on there virtually.
Yep, that's a good point. I do think some members, I also think I think once COVID's over, I don't know if COVID ever is over really, but I think that there are I know there are some older members of the public that I know that wouldn't necessarily watch it on TV, but now that everybody has gotten used to Zoom, I don't even know what it was until COVID, but now it's like second nature for my mother is on Zoom like every night. So I think we have to still leave it available. She's probably watching right now. Hi, Mom.
I will say that for the planning meeting, Jamel and I have set up a routine of a planning meeting every Monday at 3, just to go over what's on the agenda and any updates that there are. And I asked him twice for the link to the Zoom meeting because I couldn't find it in my email. And I knew I was going to be here in person, but I still kept saying, so I don't have the Zoom link. So yeah, it's going to take a while to adjust. Jen?
Yeah, I will just add that for the record, the presentations that were given on a computer were very easy to follow, in my opinion, by those folks that were in person there. So that was handy. And full disclosure, I had all intentions of attending in person tonight. I was actually really looking forward to that, and I'm virtual because of childcare. So while our older folks may enjoy calling in virtually, it's handy for some younger folks too. That's all.
Thank you. Russell?
Couple comments. The Zoom thing, we couldn't follow the pointer, but I couldn't be there tonight. I had something in the middle of this meeting tonight that I needed to be available for. So I needed to be home this evening. Otherwise, I would be there happily. I think it might be very helpful in conjunction with getting the overall plan of the downs. It would be wonderful if we had a running count of the number of homes that are completed, single family residences, condo units, apartment units, family units, that sort of thing. And we could tie that into what Rocky was saying about the number of rooftops that they need in order to feather in the commercial that we're talking about. I think all of that would be helpful. It's just another piece of data that would help us in our decision making. I love the idea, Madam Chairman, of the site visit. I'm on board for that, and also for a workshop. And lastly, I mean, if more than one person can attend that 3 o'clock meeting on Monday, I guess I would do that too. That's it.
Thank you. I just want to thank the board members who elected me as chair. Rick Meinking, I think I've missed one meeting since I've been on the board, so you may be in luck. But I appreciate your willingness to serve. Rick and I are going to meet, and we're going to just have some discussions about how we work as a board, and I don't know if we'll end up presenting something to you. If you notice tonight, sometimes I called on board members, and sometimes I simply asked for people to speak up. I don't know what this board prefers. I offer that as for suggestions. If you want to let me know, we don't need to take up the time tonight, because I'm determined we're going to be out of here before 10. But if you have a way of working that, that you would prefer, just let me know, and Rick and I will try and put something together so that we are efficient at getting our jobs done. At the same time, we're getting the information that we need to make good decisions. So I thank you all, and I need to take a vote to adjourn the
Motion
meeting.
to adjourn, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, and a second.
Second,
Okay, Russell seconded. Doreen,
Rachel Hendrickson,
yes.
Rick Manking,
Yes.
Rick Perry,
Yes.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
Russell Scudder,
yes.
and Jennifer Ladd.
Yes.
This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.